Chapter 1559. Koju felt a deep sense of uneasiness, but this was understandable. It was his bad luck to meet a weirdo like Vatler. Koju suddenly regretted becoming the fourth true ancestor. After breaking out of the cocoon and becoming a true ancestor, his miserable life gradually began and didn't end. He was always being ridiculed without restraint. Especially Dustless. What was the most unacceptable was that now it was Vatler's turn to be ridiculed. This guy didn't put him, the fourth true ancestor, in his eyes at all. "Don't force me, Humph, we'll all die together." Koju swore in his heart that he would rather die than live in dishonor. He couldn't tolerate Vatler's nonsense. "Ha!" Dustless stared at the girl in front of him. He felt like there was something wrong with his ears. "Did I hear wrong? You want to ally with me to deal with immortal would ye?" Dustless repeated Yuma's words and asked in disbelief, "Are you sure you want to deal with your mother? You don't believe me?" Yuma frowned. "That's not it." Wuchen shook his head like a rattledrum and said bluntly, "I always feel that the change is too fast. After all, we were still enemies dozens of minutes ago. Suddenly, we jumped into a trench to deal with her. I always feel a little strange. It's a bit sudden, but I'm serious." Yuma had a serious expression and said, "I want my freedom. In order to get rid of immortal would ye, I have to keep her locked up." "Are you talking about keeping her in prison? You won't get such good treatment in the future." Dustless shook his head and said, "There are only two paths waiting for immortal would ye. One is to go to hell, and the other is to completely obey my orders. How could there be such a good thing in the world if he wanted to continue living in prison? Not a chance. In any case, let's go find Natsuki first." With that, Dustless and Yuma left together. Yuma's destination was Koju's house. Dustless lived next door to Koju's house, so it was on the way. "You want to tame Mother?" "No, you want to tame immortal would ye as your subordinate?" Yuma asked in disbelief, "Can you tell me the reason?" "Of course, you can refuse, I'm just asking out of curiosity. This planet is just a fart. The primogenitors have already divided it. Also, I don't like obeying orders, so I have to find a place to build my empire. I don't think immortal would ye is qualified as a fighter. If she is willing to submit, there will naturally be a happy ending. If she refuses, we can only send her to heaven." Dustless went straight to the point and did not conceal in the slightest. "You want to take Itagami of this island for yourself?" Yuma asked in shock. Other than Itagami Island, there didn't seem to be any other good place in this world. "Why can't I?" Dustless retorted and sneered at Yuma. "You're worried about Koju, right? Do you think he's suitable to be a primogenitor?" Well, Yuma fell silent. No matter how she looked at it, Koju wasn't suitable to be a primogenitor. Be it in terms of strength or other aspects, he was far from being a primogenitor. There's another big problem. If I remember correctly, that guy was captured by Vatler. Hee hee. What do you think will happen when a gentle sheep is captured by a hungry tiger? I hope that kid doesn't get devoured. I remember Vatler professing his love to Koju. Maybe Koju really did get influenced by Vatler." Dustless laughed in schadenfreude. Vatler, on the other hand, had the attribute of being gay. "Impossible." Yuma retorted with a red face. "Who knows?" Wuchen shrugged his shoulders. When he was about to turn his head and leave, he suddenly noticed that the corner of his clothes was pulled, and there was also a subtle voice. "Dad." Although the voice was as soft as a mosquito's and could be ignored, Wuchen, who had a keen sense of hearing, still heard it clearly. Immediately, he was extremely depressed. Just whose family did this brat come from? When did I have another daughter? Puzzled, he looked behind him and saw a young girl of a few years old. Her appearance was perfect. Her big eyes were like gemstones embedded in her eye sockets. Her beautiful black hair was hanging on her waist. Her round eyes were innocently staring at Wuchen. Yuma stared at Dustless in disbelief. She didn't expect him to have a child. "Don't misunderstand, I don't have a child. Hearing this, Wu Chen hurriedly denied. Damn, this super big black hole can't be carried casually. Maybe there will be a big problem. I know. Yuma nodded. She had investigated Dustless's background. He wasn't even married, let alone having a child. He didn't even have a girlfriend. Dad. The young girl pitifully tugged at Wu Chen's clothes and pointed to the candy store next to them. She looked up at Wu Chen with her innocent eyes. Her intention was self-evident. She licked her lips covetously. This girl, she can't be her, right? Squatting down, he was surprised to find that the girl in front of him was very familiar. After looking at her carefully, Wu Chen felt that the affairs of the world were unpredictable. He was very surprised and said gloomily, "Isn't this Nangong Natsuki? The world is so small. I didn't take the initiative to look for you and you came knocking on my door." Chapter 1560. Dustless was in a daze. He thought it would take a lot of time to find Natsuki. He didn't expect her to take the initiative and even call him dad. In all fairness, Dustless's brain was not enough to process all of this. What are you going to do with her? Yuma frowned and asked. From Natsuki's innocent eyes, it was clear that she had lost her memory. The real Natsuki was always domineering. Let's bring her back for now. Dustless sighed with a headache. He could only take her home for now. If he let her walk on the streets, she would be killed by the prisoners in the prison. Cough cough cough, Dustless coughed awkwardly and squatted down. He looked at Natsuki's innocent eyes and grabbed her hand. It's getting late, Dad will take you home. No. Natsuki broke free from Dustless's hand. Even though the warmth made her feel comfortable, she still stubbornly said, I want to eat candy. Is this person really Natsuki Nangong? Although she is also very willful, only someone with a brain would make such a request. Dustless bitterly smiled and finally gave in. He raised a finger and said seriously, you have to go home in 10 minutes. Dad is the best. Nangong Na Yu immediately smiled and did not hesitate to carve a bite on Wu Chen's face. This girl, Dustless was stunned. He looked at Natsuki in a daze. He was a bit surprised by this sudden action, but this was not something to be happy about. If Natsuki regained her memory and came to find trouble with him, then he would be in trouble. Let's go buy candy for her first. Glancing at Xiandu Muyuma, Wu Chen also followed. Immortal City Muyuma hesitated for a few seconds, then gritted her teeth and followed. If she wanted to send Immortal City Muai back to hell, she had to borrow Dustless's power. Natsuki was given 10 minutes to shop in the supermarket, but in reality, it was more than an hour. After all, it was a woman's nature to shop. When they came out of the supermarket, Dustless's hands were filled with bags of various sizes. Really, I didn't expect to buy so many things. Xiandu Muyuma glanced at the lively Natsuki and was speechless. Miss Xiandu Mu. Do you have the right to talk about her? Dustless couldn't help but complain. 1/3 of the bag in his hand was Immortal Wood Yuma's. Can the two of you hand over the children in your hands to me? A hoarse voice came from behind, as terrifying as a poisonous snake's tongue. That sudden killing intent caused the surrounding temperature to drop to an unimaginable freezing point. There are indeed a lot of fish that escaped the net. Dustless turned his head to reveal half of his eyes and sized up the person who had suddenly appeared. He was surprised to find that he actually knew this person. An old spirit summoner from the guerrilla army of the Middle East's Kabristan, a monster that was implanted with the flame spirit spell. 6 years ago, he attempted to cause a terrorist attack on Itagami Island and was sent to the prison barrier. Recalling the bald old man's information, Dustless concluded, You are Kilika, right? Look at your pitiful appearance, I can't bear to kill you. Can't you find a place where no one is around and die peacefully? Living in obscurity while at death's door suits you. Cough cough cough, Kilika coughed twice as if he was having asthma, then he said fanatically, I'm very happy that you are considerate of me. But I still have a stage in this world, I can't sink into oblivion. Is that so? Hearing this, Dustless's face turned as cold as a snowstorm. He revealed his killing intent and sneered coldly, "You're already so old, yet you still don't repent and want to keep up with the times? You're quite ambitious. Unfortunately, the world is only so big, I alone am enough. You clowns can all go to hell." Swish. Swish. Kusanagi. Puchi. Swish. 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 Amaterasu. The old man's body burned with Amaterasu, turning his corpse into ashes. This happened very quickly. Due to the cold night, there weren't many people on the streets, so no one saw it. It's going to be very difficult to kill this guy. High up on the rooftop, the cold wind was blowing. A black figure was faintly discernible in the night, almost blending into the darkness. If she hadn't taken the initiative to speak, even if someone passed by, they wouldn't have noticed her presence. This person was Immortal Mu-I. She revealed a grave expression, and her crystalline eyes were filled with caution. Kilika was merely a bait sent by her, or a test stone to test Dustless's strength. But Immortal Mu-I helplessly realized that her thoughts were too naive. She didn't even know how Dustless killed him. Swish. Swish. While Immortal Mu-I was thinking about how to deal with Dustless, a sharp sound broke through the air and she quickly realized that a cold light had locked onto her. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. His body turned into a gust of wind, and Immortal Capital Mu-I dodged to the side without hesitation. Boom boom boom. As the purple light approached, the place where Shindu Mu-I was standing immediately turned into a huge pit. Her eyes, like spring water, swept over. In the darkness, a golden silhouette appeared. Celestial Mu-I was quite surprised. She had never met this person before. Immortal Capital Wood, Yi. We can work together for once. Chapter 1561. Work together? Shindu Mu-I opened her mouth and let out an ear-piercing laugh. Her eyes were filled with anger and hostility. Her killing intent locked onto the invading blonde man. Vatler. She stared at the blonde man for a while and found that he was not hostile towards her. Shindu Mu-I felt strange, but she retracted her anger. Work together with you? What a joke. What's the difference between that and setting myself on fire? Shindu Mu-I asked coldly. You're different from Dustless. Compared to him, I think you're more dangerous. I'm more dangerous than him? Hearing this, Vatler's face was filled with interest and surprise. He always thought he was not as good as Dustless. Vatler asked curiously, why don't you tell me? Are you sure you want to hear? Her beautiful purple eyes flashed with ridicule. Immortal Wood-I's beautiful voice was like the sound of nature. At this moment, there was only ridicule left. Of course. Vatler nodded. I also want to hear how I'm better than him. To be honest, I've always thought I'm not as good as him. Shindu Mu-I had to be direct. You're more cunning than him. You're a smiling tiger. You can turn hostile at any time. You. Vatler's mouth twitched. Was that a compliment? Bullshit. It was a blatant mockery, mocking Vatler's moodiness. All in all. That guy is my enemy and your enemy. Do you have the confidence to fight him alone? Vatler asked. By the way, I forgot to tell you that guy has a bunch of beautiful subordinates. Your daughter, Shindu Mu-Yuma, seems to have joined the fight against you. Okay, let's work together this time. Left with no choice, Shindu Mu-I could only agree to this unreliable alliance. After all, what Vatler said was the truth. I extracted information about the Book of Darkness from Natsuki's memories. I can use this chance to test it and use it as a trump card against Dustless. In the brightly lit room, Dustless and the others finally returned home. Jijua Shelley and Kajisaka Sayaka had been waiting for him for a long time. Of course, there was also a special and unexpected person, Shao Nagisa, Koju's biological sister. This fellow's consciousness should be Daybreak Nagisa. Agrora seems to still be in a deep slumber. After discovering that this guy wouldn't go berserk, Dustless felt relieved. In such a narrow space, although it wouldn't be a big deal if Agrora were to cause trouble, Dustless wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. Is something the matter, Miss Nagisa? After they entered the room, Dustless lazily laid on the sofa and casually said, Your brother, Koju, is in big trouble. Boom boom boom. Dustless's words were even more effective than an elixir. The moment he finished his sentence, Xiao Nagsha's entire body emitted a vast amount of cold energy. The entire living room was instantly covered in ice and snow. Ah, how terrifying. Dustless pretended to be afraid and continued to provoke her. Koju was captured by Vatler. I don't think I need to explain it to you. Agurola. There was no doubt that Agrora's consciousness had taken over this body. Your information is very useful. I will remember your kindness this time. After saying this, Dawn Nagisa's body condensed into ice and left. Ah. When a woman gets angry, it's really scary. Dustless laughed at Vatler's misfortune. He was sure that Vatler was out of luck. Agurora valued Koju a lot and had helped him time and time again. He had even warned Vatler before, but judging from the current situation, Agurora's warning was useless. Vatler had crossed the line and crossed Agurora's bottom line. Senior, are you still in the mood to laugh? Jijua Shelley stared at Dustless and complained, the space of the entire Itagami Island has been twisted. It's almost a mess. Not to mention ordinary human beings and demons, even we are affected. That's right. We need to catch that detestable criminal as soon as possible. Huangban Sayaka also said loudly. Hearing this, Wu Chen stared at the two people strangely. When he was about to open his mouth to speak, a soft body suddenly threw itself into his arms. Daddy, I want to sleep. The little girl Natsuki blinked her eyes. She was no longer as bright as before. Instead, she looked very tired. She didn't care if Dustless agreed or not. She found a spot in Dustless's arms and closed her eyes. Senior, you have a daughter? Jijua looked at Dustless in shock. Humph. Huangban Sayaka snorted proudly. She curled her lips and said disdainfully, I told you, staying under the same roof with this guy will make you pregnant. It's normal to have a child. You two misunderstood. Seeing that Jijua Shelley and Huangban Sayaka had misunderstood, Yuma stepped out to help Dustless. This little girl is actually Nangong Natsuki from Saikai Academy. Impossible. Both of them exclaimed. Natsuki was also short, but not as short as this little kid, even though they looked almost the same. It's like this, Shiendu Yuma could only tell him everything that had happened. Wuchen remained silent on the sofa. The dark world was mixed with a mysterious purple light. He knew that this was Shiendu Mui's trick, the ability of the Book of Darkness. Let's see what's different about you. About an hour later, Dustless coaxed Nadenyu to sleep and left to find trouble with Immortal City Muayi. This farce has been going on for so long, it was time to end it. Chapter 1562. At the top of Saikai Academy, a dark purple light shrouded the entire place. Immortal Muaya stood there and looked at the familiar building. She couldn't help but feel emotional after 10 years. She stood there in a daze. Yo. Ms. Shiendu, now is not the time for you to wallow in sadness. Hurry up and deactivate this ridiculous ability. Itagami Island is already a mess. I plan to use this place as the base for my empire of nothingness. It will be bad if you destroy it. A frivolous and lazy voice sounded. It was as weak as a breeze and did not have any deterrence. However, Immortal City Muayi, who had recovered from his trance, felt his heart tremble fiercely. His eyes widened to their widest extent in his life. Impossible. Immortal Muaya screamed in disbelief. The Dark Oath Scroll's ability has been activated. Other than me, no one else on Itagami Island can use their abilities. How are you still able to fly? More than 100% of the people on the island were the same. Why is Dustless the exception? This doesn't make sense. Dark Oath Scroll? Dustless wasn't fazed by her words. He sighed in his mind. As expected, the interior of Psychi Academy's building was replaced by all sorts of mysterious runes. It was because of these runes that the entire island turned into a unique domain. No ability can be used here. Of course, there was one exception. Immortal Mua Aya was unaffected by this unique domain. She could still use her abilities. Only the others were restricted. Sorry, there are exceptions to everything. You are an exception, and so am I. Glancing at Yuma, Dustless said indifferently, I don't know what you mean by, all abilities can't be used. Maybe it will work for me. However, I don't know how many abilities I have. Maybe they have been banned, but I haven't realized it yet. I have too many abilities. I don't know how many I have, so you don't need to worry. You. Immortal Mua Aya's face twitched. She felt like her intelligence was insulted by Dustless. What do you mean by, I have too many abilities? Is there anything more arrogant than that? He was simply asking for a beating. In short, submit to me or die. Which will you choose? Dustless waved his hand, not bothering to waste any more words. If it weren't for the fact that her Book of Darkness was quite powerful, he would have already killed Immortal Mua Yi. How arrogant! Immortal Mua Yi glared at Dustless with an unfriendly gaze, his tone revealing a hint of contempt. You want me to subdue you? Let's see if you have the ability to do so. Just as he finished speaking, a steel knight appeared behind Immortal Capital Mua Yi. In the end, you're still going to settle it with your fists. With a sigh, Dustless could not help but feel a little regretful. If he had known this would happen, he would not have wasted so much time talking to a woman like Immortal Mua Yi. Don't care about anything else, just beat her into submission. Swish. Swish. Dustless transformed into a black shadow and pounced out. The surroundings were deathly silent, there was no other enemy. Without a doubt, this enemy could only be Xian Du Mua Yi. You're courting death. Immortal Capital Mua Yi's face turned cold, looking at Dustless's outrageous actions. Her calm state of mind inevitably gushed out some flames. This guy really looks down on people too much. Dustless actually wants to fight with her bare-handed, naked contempt. Whoosh. Her slender fingers gently waved, and the steel shadow behind her swept straight out, and the cold gleaming long sword also mercilessly slashed at Dustless. Could bare-handed humans withstand the sharp blades and shadows of swords? Of course, it's impossible. Immortal Capital Mua Yi finally let out a carefree laugh. If you can break my guardian knight, then I will submit to you. Immortal Capital Mua Yi pursed her lips, and the smile on her beautiful face did not seem to be a joke. However, after a few seconds, she suddenly regretted it. Then you are destined to become a dog. Dustless's eyes were like torches, and his right fist had been gently raised, and covered with a layer of invincible sharpness, and whispered, armament hockey hardening. Shatter. Looking at the steel momentum close at hand, Dustless mercilessly punched out. Boom. The dull explosion spread out, and it was as terrible as the sound of thunder, followed by countless, ka sounds, and under the stunned gaze of Immortal Capital Mua Yi, the guardian she trusted instantly disintegrated. This is too fragile. Immortal Capital Mua Yi turned her head and couldn't bear to look directly. She was afraid that she would be depressed and vomit blood. It was strange that a human's fist could be so heaven-defying. As you can see, I broke your broken copper and iron guardian with one punch. Now, please fulfill your promise, Miss Immortal Capital Mu. Dustless seriously stared at Immortal Capital Mua Yi, whose face was full of unhappiness, and whispered, of course, your head is on your head, even if you want to go back on your words, I can't do anything. Well, I will fulfill my promise, but, the gem-like gorgeous purple eyes flashed with a sly light, and Immortal Capital Mua Yi proudly said, I said before that I was willing to submit to you, but I didn't say that I will obey your orders now, and I will submit to you after 100 years. Hearing this, Dustless stared at her blankly and asked lightly, are you going to play word games with me? Then. I also take back my previous promise, and I have changed my mind. With a fierce smile, Dustless's eyes flashed fiercely. Since gentle means don't work, I will beat you until you complain. This is your own fault. Chapter 1563. Dustless's chilling smile was filled with boundless savagery. His glowing red eyes made Celestial Wood Ye's heart skip a beat. Cold sweat dripped down her forehead like raindrops. Celestial Wood Ye could feel the frigid air around her. It was so cold that she felt uncomfortable. She could even see ice shards in the air. They were all frozen by Dustless's murderous aura. Crack, crack, crack. Suddenly, the sound of bones cracking could be heard. Immortal Mu Ye's expression was slightly flustered. She realized that because Wu Chen's aura was too strong, it made it difficult for her to move. It was as if she had entered a gravitational field. Even moving her body was extremely strenuous. That majestic pressure pressed down on her bones, making her dizzy and unable to breathe. If the devil race and magic are heresy, then this guy is also heresy. He's the heresy of heresy. Immortal Wood Ye looked at Wu Chen, who was slowly walking over, and felt powerless. Shadow. Celestial Wood Ye muttered. The metal monster that was shattered earlier appeared again. It looked at Dustless coldly. Its body was emitting a bone-chilling aura. Under the control of its mind, it charged at Dustless again. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The black shadow charged at her at lightning speed. Celestial Wood Ye could only see a blurry shadow. She wanted to see Dustless's head separated from his body. But she was destined to be disappointed. Crack, crack, crack. At the same time, the entire island started to shake violently. The large island started to sink slowly. Some parts of the shore were already corroded by the seawater. Dense seawater continued to spread towards the center of the island. This Dark Oath scroll is indeed extraordinary. It can nullify all supernatural abilities and magic. The curse that created Itagami Island belongs to this category as well. I'm afraid it won't be long before the Book of Dark Oath dispels the curse and this island will sink. Immortal City Mua Yi is a super genius. To be able to dispel all kinds of supernatural abilities and spells, TSK. Impressive. Dustless lowered his head and gave Yi a few admiring glances. As for whether she was a good person or a bad person, Dustless didn't care. It was just an insignificant question. There was no such thing as good or evil in this world. Everyone only had different standpoints and beliefs. In other words, the victor was the righteous one. Xiandu Mu Yi was judged as evil because she lost to Namiko Natsuki. Therefore, the winner, Namiko Natsuki, was righteous. Success. Immortal City Mu Yi was overjoyed and clenched her fists. Celestial Wood Ye's Iron Knight, Shadow, was closing in on Dustless. Just as he was about to raise his sword and kill him, Dustless was still standing there in a daze. His eyes flashed with a strange light from time to time, as if he had found something interesting. Die. With a shout, Immortal Mu Ye's eyes were filled with killing intent. At the same time, Shadow's sharp blade swept towards Dustless's neck. Such a powerful person is dead. What a pity. Sighing, Immortal City Mu Ye's eyes dimmed a little. She felt sorry for the death of a rabbit. After all, Dustless was a peerless genius just like her. Poochie. The sound of a body being cut apart was heard. It was very simple, there was no obstruction at all. It ends here. Sighing in relief, Immortal City Mu Yi muttered to herself. I can't forgive this crazy world. Those who look down on the witch are all guilty. Looking around, the entire Itagami Island was in her sight. Immortal City Mu Yi continued to mutter to herself. Now is the time to rewrite this world. Itagami Island is only the first step to redemption. I say, are you sick in the head? Your enemy is still standing here and you want to rewrite the world. What a joke, it's not impossible to change the world, but you should at least worry about your own safety. The owner of this voice was as terrifying as a natural enemy of immortal capital Muayi. Her calm and indifferent expression instantly changed to one of fear and shock. Turning his head with great difficulty, the scene that entered his eyes caused Xian de Muaye's pupils to shrink. He originally thought that Wu Chen was dead, but he was actually alive and well. There was not a single scratch on him. How did this guy do it? Why did all the aptitude users on Itagami Island lose their abilities and mana? How did he break this iron law? Immortal City Mu Yuma stomped her feet in anger. Encountering something that she couldn't understand, she couldn't help but feel frustrated. Her calm mind was stirred up. Is that the Dark Oath book? Looking at the ancient book in Immortal City Mu Yuma's hand, Dustless immediately snatched it. Wanxiang Heaven's Pull. The sudden appearance of the gravitational force caught Xiandu Muayi off guard. Before he could react, the Dark Oath book in his hand disappeared. He could only watch it leave him, unable to react. Game over. His heart that was hanging in the air calmly fell to the ground. Wu Chen quietly stared at the unwilling immortal Wood Ah Yi and explained faintly, "You may not be able to understand why I can ignore the ability of this technique." That's right. Immortal City Muayi nodded stiffly. She stared at Dustless, waiting for a reasonable answer. All the aptitude users and mana users on Itagami Island were affected by the Dark Oath book. Why are you unaffected? You have to give a reasonable explanation. First, after organizing his thoughts, Dustless said in a deep voice. It doesn't matter if you can understand it or not, you have to understand it. No matter what kind of ability it is, it's nothing in front of absolute power. Secondly, I'm not a native of this world. This might be the reason why the Dark Oath book can't affect me. Also, I don't know anything about magic, so how can it be nullified? You want to use a stupid book to limit my power? Those aptitude users that I killed are going to cry. Chapter 1564. When these words fell, Immortal Mu Ah Ye's face was particularly colorful. Green, white, black, green. Her face was changing colors. There were only things that she could not think of and nothing that she could not see. Wu Chen's words really made her choke. What kind of answer is this? In Immortal City Wood Ah Ye's ears, it was all nonsense without any basis or reason. What do you mean I'm not a person of this world? Were they looking down on the rest of the planet for being natives? Forget it, it's useless to say it. As a mortal, you won't understand what I mean. Dustless shook his head. He didn't want to waste time on this small issue. Don't think you've won. I still have some tricks up my sleeve. Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. Immortal City Wood Ah Ye's delicate face twisted. Her tone revealed her determination. It seemed like she wanted to die together with Dustless. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Then, under Dustless's gaze, her body burned with purple flames. With Immortal City Wood Ah Yi as the center, the flames gradually engulfed her body. This is, Dustless frowned. This scene, there was some familiar information in his mind. However, he couldn't remember what it was called. This is the so-called fallen soul. Offering your soul to the devil and then turning into a real devil. The true form of a witch. In short, she's crazy. A pleasant but nervous voice sounded. Dustless turned around and saw Immortal City Wood Ah Yi, Ji Zhua, Shelley, Huangban Sha, Yaka, Nangong Natsuki and the others. Ha 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 ha. You're all here? Immortal City Wood Ah Ye's pleasant voice sounded. It was completely different from the pure voice from before. This time, there was a hint of a devil's seductiveness. Ah Yi, why did you do this? Nangong Natsuki had obviously recovered her memory. However, her height was not restored. Her proud face had a complicated expression. The two of them had a good relationship in the past. They could be called best friends. Why? Immortal City Wood Ah Yi revealed a hateful smile and said loudly, "This world is wrong. Magic and the devil race, these things don't exist at all. What crime have I committed by restoring this world to its original state? While there were still two consciousnesses, immortal Muayi continued, but it's all because of this hateful guy. He ruined all my plans. Ah. I was just following orders. Seriously, I got shot even when I was lying down. Dustless shrugged helplessly. Looking at the completely demonized immortal capital Muayi, he said softly, Shelley, I'll leave the rest to you. Hand it over to her? Nangong Na Yu and the others were stunned when they heard this. They looked at Dustless in confusion. His raised lips were filled with confidence. Is there a way to save Yi? Nangong Na Yu was the first to ask. No matter what, immortal capital Muayi was her close friend and had the responsibility to save her. What celestial would Yi said before is trustworthy. It's not as unreasonable as you think. Dustless rarely jumped to immortal capital Muayi's side. He analyzed wisely, if it's as she said, immortal capital Muayi can be saved. But I can't. I can kill one person, but saving her, that's not my strong point. I need Shelley. Dustless looked at Jijua Shelley and smiled. Type 7 assault demon subduing machine gun, Snow Cloud Wolf. This is a gun that can restore the world. If it's Shelley, she should be able to do it. Restore the world? Nangong Na Yu's face was strange. If this came from immortal capital Muayi, it would be normal. But now that it came from Dustless, she felt like Dustless was also brainwashed by immortal capital Muayi. Please don't look at me with suspicion. Just try it. Wuchen continued very casually, treat it as a last resort. Just take it as a gamble. Anyway, you have no other way to help immortal Muayi. Are you confident? A transfer student. Nangong Na Yu asked expectantly. After all, immortal capital Muayi was one of her close friends. She didn't want to see her fall. I'll try my best. Jijua Shelley said she would try her best. She didn't know if the Snow Cloud Wolf could help immortal capital Muayi recover. Let me take care of these bastards. Dustless's palm erupted with an almost invincible gravitational force. His right hand suddenly grabbed the void and a black hole appeared in his palm. Wanxiang Heavenly Attraction. The ghostly fire around immortal capital Muayi was all sucked in by Dustless's gravitational force. They floated in the void and then boundless black light rapidly attacked. Dao breaking 90 black coffin. Pucci. These pulsating purple balls of light were fatally injured, and instantly collapsed. Now, only the immortal capital Muayi was left, covered in light. Others might not understand, but Dustless clearly remembered that in the original work, Jimo Shuelai had used the Snow Cloud Wolf to save immortal Muayi from the gates of hell. That's about it. Dustless glanced at Jijua Shelley. His meaning was self-evident. I understand, senior. After calming down, Jijua Shelley held the long spear and flew toward immortal capital Muayi. The Snow Cloud Wolf in her hand emitted a piercing halo. The son of Bayan and the god of sword sorcerer is here to pray, dawn of demon breaking, Snow Cloud Wolf, quickly use the power of the god of steel to help me destroy the evil gods and demons. After the chant, Jijua Shelley jumped up and the Snow Cloud Wolf's tip had already landed on immortal capital Muayi. Crack. Suddenly, a crisp sound like a mirror shattering was heard. The light covering immortal capital Muayi's body was completely retracted. Her unharmed body was exposed in front of everyone. Chapter 1565. This unbelievable turn of events stunned everyone, especially Jijua Shelley. She blushed in embarrassment. The Snow Dawn Wolf was her weapon, and she didn't know it as well as an outsider. Thinking of Jijua, Shelley's face blushed with embarrassment. You can even understand this kind of thing. Who exactly are you? Immortal Muayi opened her eyes with difficulty, her gem-like eyes staring at Dustless. I'm just an ordinary person who can't be more ordinary. Dustless casually said perfunctorily, you should be convinced now. You only have yourself to blame for falling into such a state. Alright, you can reflect in prison, Yi. Nangong Na Yu said indifferently. She waved her hand, and a purple magic formation appeared in the air. Countless chains shot out and circled around immortal Wood Yi. I have to go back again? God is so unfair. Immortal Wood Yi smiled bitterly. She just came out for a breath of fresh air and was about to be locked up again. Cough, cough, cough. At this moment, Dustless suddenly coughed and winked at immortal Wood Yi. He smiled maliciously and looked like he wanted her to beg for his help. Do I really have to bow to this guy? But if I refuse, I'll have to return to that prison barrier where I can't see anyone. The immortal city Mu Ye's mind spun quickly. She clenched her tender fists tightly as a troubled expression appeared on her face. No one wished to become someone else's underling. Even though Wu Chen's display of strength made immortal Mu Yi prostrate herself in admiration, it did not mean that she could become Wu Chen's underling without any grudges. I promise you. After immortal city Mu Yi pondered for a while, she finally chose to collude with Silver Wolf. There was no other way. She had stayed in that dark enchantment for a full 10 years, and did not want to continue living like the end of the world. What did she promise you? Nangong Na Yu pointed at immortal Wood Yi and asked unkindly. She felt uneasy. She's going to be my follower. Dustless said as if that was how it should be. He walked up to immortal Wood Yi and healed her. He smiled gently and said, Your injury is just a small matter. We have the same idea. We can work together. Advance hand in hand. Nangong Natsuki's eyelids jumped. She glared at Dustless and said, Be your subordinate? Did I allow it? Dustless, stop dreaming. Yi is just a criminal. He can't be your subordinate. Also, your boss is called Nangong Natsuki. In other words, no matter what, you won't let them go? Dustless faintly stared at Natsuki Nangong, his eyes clearly changing. You want to make a move against me? Nangong Natsuki asked while clenching her teeth. She secretly cursed Dustless for being bewitched by a fox. Internal strife? This is interesting. Immortal Capital Mua Yi looked at the two of them with interest. Ripples appeared in the depths of her eyes as she glanced back and forth between Dustless and Nangong Natyue. I won't fight you, but... Dustless smiled calmly, I will leave Itagami Island. You. Natsuki Nangong glared at Dustless. This guy is doing this on purpose. Because of Dustless, Itagami Island can't afford to offend big shots like Vatler and the first primogenitor of the War Monarch's territory. If Dustless loses this nuclear weapon or leaves Itagami Island, those big shots will have nothing to worry about. They might even cause trouble for Itagami Island. On purpose. Natsuki Nangong glared at Dustless angrily. She wanted to swallow this brat alive. She knew Itagami Island's predicament and did this on purpose. Amazing. Immortal Capital Mua Yi was impressed. She looked at Natsuki Nangong Natsuki's helpless expression. Dustless can live comfortably without Itagami Island. However, Itagami Island is different. They offended a lot of big shots because of Dustless. If Dustless leaves, those big shots might come for revenge. You win. After a few seconds of silence, Natsuki Nangong Natsuki sighed. She lowered her head and compromised, I will tell the people in the commune what you want. But you have to keep an eye on Yi. She is very dangerous. No problem. Wuchen patted his chest and nodded with a smile. Dustless and Immortal Capital Mua Yi walked side by side on the street. Why are you so obsessed with me? I might think that I'm a genius, but I don't seem to be of any use to you. Immortal Capital Mua Yi expressed her doubts. She couldn't understand why Dustless valued her. Miss Immortal Capital Mu, you don't have to belittle yourself. Dustless shook his head. He didn't doubt Immortal Capital Mu Ye's ability. Can you use your Dark Oath scroll again? Dustless asked expectantly. Immortal Capital Mua Yi fell silent and nodded. This kind of small matter was nothing to her. She replied calmly, Of course. Is that so? I didn't misjudge you. Dustless kept her in suspense and smiled mysteriously. I want you to go to Europe and use your Dark Oath scroll and War Monarch's domain to strip all vampires of their abilities. War Monarch's domain? Immortal Capital Mua Yi was stunned. What do you want to do to War Monarch's domain? If you get caught, it will be the same as declaring war on them. Didn't I say it before? This world has limited territory and there are too many vampires and primogenitors. It's hard to rule. I can be the strongest in this world. That's why there are so many rewritten maps. Chapter 1566. Hearing Wu Chen's deranged thoughts, Immortal Mu Ah Yi was dumbstruck, and his mind went blank for a moment. Although he had heard that Wu Chen and the War King domain had many conflicts, he never thought that this guy would be so daring. You're not going to start a war with the first true ancestor, are you? Also, don't tell me that I'm the only subordinate you're talking about right now. Immortal Mua Yi asked with a dark face. You're really smart. I didn't misjudge you. You're my only subordinate. Dustless was surprised. He didn't expect Immortal Mua Yi to figure it out. This woman was really smart. Pfft. Immortal Mua Yi couldn't take it anymore. She rolled her eyes and spat out blood. This guy didn't feel ashamed. He was actually proud. The two of us can fight against the true ancestors. Immortal Mua Yi's mouth twitched. Wasn't this just asking for trouble? Of the four true ancestors, other than Koju, the other true ancestors all had powerful forces. The most powerful country on this planet was the true ancestors' Empire of Darkness. Fight? Dustless glanced at the shocked Immortal Mua Yi and said, You're overestimating them. This is just a boring one-sided battle. Please don't overestimate those vampire bats. Vampire bats? Immortal Mua Yi was depressed. Although she felt that the name vampire bats was quite suitable for vampires. Actually, I'm the same as you. The existence of the so-called demons in this world is completely unnecessary. This planet is pitifully small and has limited resources. The true ancestor's existence is completely unnecessary. Dustless didn't hide his purpose and said, So, it's better to get rid of the vampires as soon as possible. But can the two of us do it? That's impossible. Immortal Mua Yi said bitterly. At the same time, she understood why Dustless wanted to rope her in. She went straight to the point. Even if I use the Dark Oath book to remove all the abilities of the Battle Monarch domain, I can't destroy them in a short time. Plus, the Battle Monarch domain has a huge range. It's impossible to use the Dark Oath book to cover all the territories. It doesn't matter, as long as we cover their capital. Dustless chuckled, revealing an unexpectedly profound smile. As long as he could eliminate the abilities of the true ancestors, he could summon meteors from outer space to destroy the Battle Monarch domain. Vampires who had lost their magic were nothing but trash. The next morning, the morning breeze was strong and mighty. Looking from afar, one could see the sparkling and limitless sea. Last night, according to Dustless's plan, Yoshi left Itagami Island early in the morning and headed to Europe's warlord's domain alone. Even though Natsuya noticed that I was gone, she chose to ignore it. Dustless had promised that I would not destroy Itagami Island. Natsuya had no choice but to turn a blind eye. Come to think of it, Koju hasn't returned since he was captured by Vatler. Under the scorching sun, Dustless muttered to himself under the shade of a tree. Koju's mysterious disappearance, Dustless guessed that Vatler had secretly captured him. As for why, Dustless had no idea. Out of humanitarian considerations, Dustless couldn't bear to let Nagisa stay at home alone. So, he invited her to stay at his place for a few days. Women are really troublesome creatures. Through the window, Dustless bitterly smiled as he observed the women walking around the shop. That was a lingerie shop, it wasn't appropriate for him to enter. That, a weak voice suddenly came. Wuchen turned his head and looked over. What came into his eyes were two white-haired girls. Their appearance and facial features were extremely exquisite. They were living beauties. Two stunning beauties joined. One of them had a noble and refined temperament. Her entire body exuded a noble aura. Her delicate face was like carved jade, without a trace of flaw. The other one was also a white-haired beauty. She looked at Wu Chen with a somewhat embarrassed expression. Her expression was somewhat timid. The two of them were Lafria and Kinace Cannon. Stop fooling around. I won't choose lingerie for you. Dustless glanced at the two and turned around impolitely. His expression said, I'm a gentleman. You've got the wrong person. What a joke. A man entering a lingerie shop would cause the police to call the police. Really? It's not gentlemanly to refuse a lady's invitation. You're too tasteless. Lafria shook her head and complained. You can't even move in front of a beauty. I'm starting to wonder if you're a man. Sorry, I don't know anything about gentlemanly. I'm just a country bumpkin. Dustless ignored Lafria's complaints. He felt more comfortable sitting down and drinking. That Dustless. A weak voice suddenly sounded. Kinace Cannon mustered her courage and took a step forward. Just as she was about to speak, something unexpected happened. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A series of sharp air-breaking sounds came from afar. Wu Chen frowned slightly and looked up slightly. A slight cold light invaded his eyes. Trying to kill someone in broad daylight. You've got some guts. Dustless looked at the cold light that had locked onto Kinace Cannon, Lafria, and himself. He did not move. He released some of his Ryatsu and an indestructible barrier was formed. Bakudo 81, Sky Breaker. Bang bang bang. A transparent barrier appeared in an instant, blocking all the incoming cold light. At the same time, a strangely dressed man walked out of the dark alley. Chapter 1567. Dustless frowned as he stared at the person who suddenly appeared in the alley. When he saw the person's attire, he suddenly understood. So it's you. Natsuki called me last night and said that the sage's spirit blood was stolen by a thief. You must be the idiot in the white shirt and checkered hat. Dustless stared at the person with interest as he pulled Cannon and Lafreya behind him. His eyes were as cold as the wind, and the surrounding temperature instantly dropped. Creak. Even the green leaves on the trees were frozen and turned into ice. As soon as the wind blew, they withered. Although this guy looks sloppy and lazy most of the time, he is very reliable. Lafreya said with a smile. She believed that Dustless was much more reliable than Koju. In the original work, Akatsuki Koju's body would often be controlled by the enemy, or even possessed by the enemy. This kind of bitter thing happened from time to time. Did you say that I am an idiot? When the newcomer heard this, his face flashed with killing intent. His gaze shifted from Lafreya and Kinace Cannon to Wu Chen, and a wave of hostility surged out of him. This is blasphemy to the great alchemist. Also, my name is Gong Tenzuka. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, the man turned into a storm and swept over. His right arm suddenly turned into liquid, surging like a stream of water. Then, with a slight movement of the mind of the Tenzuo tribute, it was immediately compressed into a large blade that radiated cold light. Boom boom boom. Gong Tenzuka stomped on the ground, causing the cement floor to crack. He jumped into the air and used the momentum of the fall to descend from the sky. Cut me in half, trash. Tenzuka Gong's face was twisted like a madman. His expression was like that of an evil ghost. His right hand had turned into a broadsword and was about to chop Dustless's head. Get out of the way. Witnessing Tenzuka Gong's ferocious and arrogant behavior, especially his cold eyes and murderous aura, it was as if he didn't care how many people he killed. The panicked Cannon and Lafreya grabbed Wu Chen's arm and tried to pull him away. However, Dustless's body seemed to be integrated with the earth, and no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't move him. A clown wants to kill people? Without even looking at Gong Tenzuka, Dustless just sneered. His cold face flashed a playful look, and at the same time, his dry mouth slightly opened. Armament hockey hardening. The head made of flesh and blood immediately changed, and the skin turned into an indestructible helmet, as hard as steel. Clang, 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 clang. The broadsword slashed down on Dustless's head with all its might. Immediately, there was the sound of his head collapsing. Countless fragments fell down like dregs. He couldn't be more dead. However, Tenzuo Gong couldn't bring himself to be happy. He hit Wu Chen with all his might, but something unexpected happened instead. Is this guy's head made of diamond? Tenzuka Gong asked, dumbfounded. That broken thing was the broadsword in his hand. Because Dustless's head was too hard, he was not hurt at all. Instead, his weapon was shattered. With your garbage level, you want to fight with me? You're still a few hundred years too early. Dustless said coldly, staring at Gong Tenzuka's abdomen. An array of light came out of his fingertips. Laser. The destructive beam shot straight out, and the edge went straight to Gong Tenzuka. Although he was aware of the danger and chose to temporarily avoid the edge of the light, the speed of the light was too fast for Gong Tenzuka to avoid. Puchi. The light penetrated Gong Tenzuka's body, leaving a big hole in his abdomen, and the wound made people's scalp numb. However, this guy was not affected at all, and he stared at Dustless. It's difficult to kill me, it's even impossible. Gong Tenzuka laughed, and at the same time, he walked to the street lamp on the side of the road, grabbed the metal railing, and with a little force, it liquefied and immediately swallowed into his body. The huge wound on his abdomen also healed. Not bad. Dustless nodded slightly. As long as his body was injured, he could swallow the metal to heal the wound. Such a comprehensive ability was worth it, and perhaps this was Gong Tenzuka's biggest advantage. Hand over the two girls behind you. Glaring at Dustless, Gong Tenzuka said in a low voice, this. I can spare your life, don't make a mistake. Without knowing the depth of Dustless's strength, Gong Tenzuka didn't dare to act rashly. This guy's head is too strange. Even with my strength, I can't kill him. He's a monster. Gong Tenzuka thought about Dustless's weakness, and suddenly found that there seemed to be no weakness. He couldn't even cut through his skin. What else could he threaten him with? Spare my life? Dustless laughed, and then with a move, Cannon and Lafria were frightened. Dustless suddenly grabbed the two girls' arms and pulled them into his embrace. Then, he slightly opened his legs and pressed on their shoulders. Cannon and Lafria both sat on Dustless's legs. I won't hand them over to you. If you don't like it, come and bite me. Wu Chen's appearance of hugging women on his left and right was extremely annoying. His unruly face was even more irritating to Tian Zhonggong. Tian Zhonggong stared at him as if he was looking at garbage. He did not hide his ridicule. This guy is really a headache. Lafria and Cannon, who were sitting on Dustless's legs, blushed in embarrassment. But with the enemy in front of them, they could only snuggle into Dustless's embrace. Gong Tenzuka's face twitched, and his expression was constipated. Dustless's proud expression seemed to be saying, so what if I bully you for not having a girlfriend? Chapter 1568. Tenzuka Gong glared at Dustless. His smiling face was asking for a beating. Lafreya and Hanace Cannon purposely went along with Dustless and leaned into his arms. The two goddesses were as lazy as kittens with a satisfied smile on their faces. Damned bastard. What do you take the battle with me for? Be serious. Tenzuka Gong was shocked and angry. He was being looked down upon. This guy even used him as a tool to pick up girls. You want me to be serious? With an idiot like you? Dustless did not put Amaterasu Gong in his eyes at all. His words were as unpleasant as they could be. He did not treat Amaterasu Gong as a person at all. Of course, he wasn't a human to begin with. In the end, he was just an artificial life form similar to Asteroidi. The one who created him was the so-called sage. You're courting death. After being humiliated again and again, Tenzuka Gong could not bear it anymore. He waved his hand, and countless cold steel lights were as numerous as a rainstorm. Ignoring the definition of distance, they directly shot in front of Dustless in an instant. "You're always using this kind of trash move." Wuchen shook his head, his face was full of disappointment. At the same time, the dormant chakra in his body broke out, the deep Rinnegan rippled, and a visible ripple broke out. Shinra Tensei. Bang! 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 All kinds of spikes were repelled by the repulsive force. Dustless, La Freya, and Kanae's cannon, who were under his protection, were unharmed. What kind of ability does this guy have? All kinds of moves, too many to count. Tenzuka Gong was depressed. He couldn't even get close to Dustless now. But... my target isn't this kid. Laughing sinisterly, Tenzuka Gong's gaze finally landed on Kanae's Natsuan and La Freya. His oily green eyes were filled with playfulness, and his lips would occasionally move slightly, letting out the excited laughter of a hunter who had encountered his prey. "Since you want to die so much," Dustless's eyes shot out a dazzling sharp light. His entire body turned into a flash of light and disappeared in an instant. The speed of light could not be captured, and no creature would be able to capture it. What is this? Light? Even an alchemist like Gong Tenzuka was stunned on the spot. What he saw in his eyes was a flash of super light, but he didn't know what it was. "I have to retreat. This guy is too dangerous. I might even lose my life." In a brief trance, Amatsuka Gong vaguely saw Dustless's ferocious face. His whole body was cold and desperate. His dead eyes were emotionless, just like a machine. At the same time, the Tenzuka Gong felt a cold, baleful aura lock onto him. He instinctively wanted to escape, but he was shocked to find that his body was not listening to him at all. He could not move his legs at all. Damn it! Tian Zhonggong cursed loudly. He was sweating profusely. He knew that it was caused by Wu Chen's murderous aura. At the same time, the owner of the flash arrived. He glanced at Tian Zhonggong's ugly face and kicked him mercilessly. Lightspeed kick. The flash of light hit Gong Tenzuka's body with full force. His body emitted violent fluctuations. His face was hit by a powerful force and exploded into a pool of unknown liquid. Then, a huge mushroom cloud rose into the sky. Hot air and shockwaves burned everything. The buildings on both sides of the street collapsed and disappeared completely. Fragile objects such as glass were all turned into dense sparkling fragments. Gong Tenzuka himself was even more miserable. He was sent flying dozens of meters away by Dustless's kick. He bounced on the ground like a football. His body and appearance no longer existed. His face was destroyed by Dustless's kick. Now, he had turned into a pile of liquid metal. Such strength. Could it be that the fifth true ancestor has appeared in this world? Tian Zhonggong turned into flowing liquid metal. The terror of Dustless rose to an unprecedented level. This guy was so ferocious that he didn't seem like a human. I hate people who like to take hostages the most. When I meet this kind of despicable person, I will always reveal my strength to beat him or her into submission. Just like the immortal city Mua Yi. However, in my eyes, you are just a trash that no one wants. You are far different from the immortal city Mua Yi. Senpai. Jijua Shelley, Hanban Sayaka, Azure Wing Asakani, and Koju's sister, Koju's Nagisa, rushed to the scene of the incident. I have already dealt with this kid. You guys just arrived. The people from the Lion King organization are indeed unreliable. Choosing something like underwear can take more than 10 times more time than ordinary people. Wu Chen looked at the several women with big and small bags and complained. You guys have guts. How dare you attack us? Don't you know that this island is going to be called Dustless from now on? Hanban Sayaka, who was always the bravest, took a few steps forward. Her eyes were like torches, emitting an oppressive cold light. This guy, Wu Chen rolled his eyes at Huang Bansa Sayaka. His fingertips emitted a huge flash of light as he aimed at that pool of liquid. His eyes emitted endless cold light, and the sound of ghosts crying and wolves howling could be heard. Forget it. If I use that here, it will cause too much of a commotion. After the energy ball condensed for more than 10 seconds, it suddenly extinguished. Under the astonished gaze of several people, Dustless finally turned around and left lazily. A living person turned a deaf ear to it and directly ignored the Amaterasu tribute. Senpai, are you going to let that guy go? Jijua Shelley was surprised. Of course not. Don't forget that this is the city. There are too many passers-by. Also, Gong Tenzuka will come to me sooner or later. As long as Cannon was around Dustless, Gong Tenzuka would continue to visit him. Jijua Shelley's worry was unnecessary. Chapter 1569. Tenzuka Gong's face looked like he had constipation. Today, he came here with a lot of confidence. He thought that he could easily win the fight, but who would have thought that he would be defeated? Just you wait, I won't let this go. His face twisted violently as he glared at Dustless and the others. The cold light in his eyes seemed to imprint Dustless and the others in his heart forever. If I have the chance in the future, I will cut you into pieces. Time flew, and soon, it was the next morning. Dustless's house. Why did you buy so much cat food? Do any of you have a cat? I remember that the apartment doesn't allow animals. Dustless sat on the sofa and asked lazily while eating snacks, also, where are you going? Don't go out if you have nothing to do. You are all good mediums. Tenzuka Gong is watching you. Once you go out, he will follow you like a shadow. Taking a closer look, a Sonian Blue Feather, Jijua Shelley, Sayaka Kawasaka, Nagisa, Henace Cannon, and La Freya were all ready to go for a hike. Stop nagging. People might think that you are an old man. Henace Cannon said disdainfully, we have so many people. Can't we beat that guy? You are underestimating us. Although we are not as strong as you, we can take care of Tenzuka Gong. Even if you look down on people, you should know when to stop. That's right. The girls nodded. Henace Cannon looked like a big sister now. You guys. You are right. You can go wherever you want. I can't stop you. But, I still need to remind you to leave as soon as possible if you encounter any danger. Dustless thought about it and felt relieved. Henace Cannon was right. Jijua Shelley and Henace Cannon could easily take care of Tenzuka Gong, so he didn't need to worry about it. Senior, we might not be back in the afternoon. The lunch I prepared yesterday is in the fridge. Jijua Shelley's voice came from outside the door. Dustless nodded silently. Looking at the several figures, he couldn't help but feel a little dizzy. Unknowingly, he had stolen Koju's script. Let alone Blue Feather and Jijua Shelley, even Koju's sister was temporarily living in his house. It's worth mentioning that Koju is still missing. Lord Dustless. At this moment, a strange monster suddenly emerged from the ground. It was naked, and its skin was pale white. It did not have any gender. This was the white Zetsu that Dustless had specially created to make it easier for him to communicate with Immortal Capital Muayi. Is it done over there? Immortal City Muayi's work efficiency is very high. Putting down the snacks in his hand, Dustless's calm eyes rippled, and his killing intent surged and wreaked havoc. At this moment, in the capital of the first true ancestor's warlord domain. This place was filled with a large number of purple runes. The scale was so large that it covered the entire majestic city. This sudden scene caused the vampires to be confused. I can't use my mana. Could it be Immortal Capital Muayi? I thought she was captured by Dustless. But she sure has guts to come to War Monarch's domain to do something like this. This is as serious as starting a world war. In a luxurious mansion, Vatler frowned. He encountered this situation on Itagami Island as well. It was the day Immortal Capital Muayi escaped from her prison. Phew, At this moment, immortal capital Muayi was looking at the city filled with mysterious runes and curses. She was a little nervous. She was following Dustless's plan. If Dustless stood her up, immortal capital Muayi would have to face the wrath of War Monarch's domain alone. The first primogenitor, forgotten War Monarch, was a true powerhouse. Even two Kojus combined wouldn't be his match. Are you trembling? Are you afraid of the first primogenitor? An indifferent voice came from beside immortal capital Muayi. Immortal capital Muayi was stunned. Her pupils contracted when she saw who it was. She asked in shock. When did you show up? The one who came was Dustless. I left the Flying Thunder God's spell on you. I can teleport with a thought. Dustless explained casually. Dustless looked down at the luxurious city. A sharp glint flashed in his eyes. I don't like to cause trouble, but I'm not afraid of it either. Those who offend me will die, including primogenitors. Dustless's expression was so cold that immortal capital Muayi thought he was a robot. He didn't have any emotions that a living being should have. War Monarch's domain has a lot of people. It's not as simple as Itagami Island. All we need to do is sink the island and everything will be destroyed. It will take a lot of time to get rid of all of them. There were countless elite vampires in this city, and the population was in the tens of millions. Although their magic and special abilities had been removed, even if there were 10 million pigs, it would still take a few months to catch and kill them all. You don't have to worry about that. Dustless was unfazed. His body glowed with a golden light. High-density materialized chakra was released. A double-faced Kinsusanu appeared and made the same hand seals as Dustless. It's enough to destroy this eyesore, tenebrous quaking star. Chapter 1570. Immortal Wood Yi didn't really understand Dustless's words. She looked at the golden giant and felt a chill run down her spine. She could vaguely see the look in Dustless's eyes, and her expression changed. About a dozen seconds later, the people in the Battle King's domain were at a loss. They suddenly realized that the sky had mysteriously darkened. It was still daytime. Why did it suddenly turn dark? Speaking of which, why are there so many strange things happening recently? Who knows? Perhaps our Battle Monarch domain is so strong that even the gods are afraid of it. Perhaps the heavens are playing a joke on us. Hahaha, that's right. The Battle Monarch domain is the strongest among the true ancestors. The people who didn't know what was going on all laughed as they looked at the black shadow in the sky. They were all bored and joking, and it just so happened that Dustless and immortal Wood Yi heard it. The ignorant are fearless. It's not a bad thing to die happily like this. There were no ripples in his calm eyes. Wu Chen's eyes didn't have the slightest ripple. He maintained his calm from beginning to end. There was nothing to be emotional about this continent that was about to be destroyed. Everything would become history. Look, what's that? A meteorite? Damn it, how are we supposed to block that? Perhaps only the familiars of true ancestors can deal with it. Idiots, everyone has mysteriously lost their mana and abilities. How are we supposed to summon familiars? Let's run. If we get hit by that thing, we're dead for sure. A bunch of idiots. Look at the area covered by that meteorite. The entire region is under attack. We can escape if we want to, but we'll have to run to another continent. When the meteorite was infinitely close to the ground, the elites of the Battle Monarch domain all panicked. Looking at this unprecedented super meteorite, everyone was scared out of their wits. Some people's hearts were dead. They could already see the tragic scene of the Battle Monarch domain being destroyed. Damn it, it must be Dustless's doing. Only he has such a strange ability. Moreover, immortal Wood Yi has joined forces with Dustless. Through the window, Vatler stared dumbfoundedly at the falling meteor, his heart filled with despair. In the past, when they still had mana, they could still summon familiars to defend themselves. However, now that everyone's mana had mysteriously disappeared, the vampires were no different from humans. The only thing that awaited them was death. No wonder. No wonder you said that you could end this battle in an instant. Now it seems that it was indeed a one-sided slaughter. The vampires in the Battle King's domain didn't even have the ability to retaliate. Immortal Muayi was also gasping in shock, her chest heaving up and down. She was quite frightened by the slowly falling meteor. Her beautiful eyes widened. She tried to capture the specific range of the meteor, but found that it had no boundaries. It was as if the meteor was as big as the first true ancestor's battle monarch realm. Time to retreat. Dustless suddenly grabbed Immortal Muayi's waist. Just as he was about to leave, a slap came towards him. Pervert. Realizing that she was grabbed by Dustless, Immortal Muayi instinctively slapped him. However, in the next second, she regretted it. What if this guy got angry and killed her? Slap. After all, he had destroyed several worlds. How could Dustless be slapped by Immortal Muayi? He easily caught the fragrant hand that was attacking him. First of all, Heaven Trembling Star is a spell that will take the enemy down with you. You and I are also in its range. Now that the meteor is about to fall, with your speed, it will be very difficult to escape from its range. If you want to wait for death, then you can stay here and die for the Battle King's domain. Sorry, I still have things to do. Goodbye. Dustless ignored Immortal Muayi. Just as he was about to leave, a pair of warm arms wrapped around his waist. Turning his head, he saw that it was Immortal Capital Muayi, whose face was filled with awkwardness and depression. You want to die. In the end, you still don't want to die. Wuchen glanced at Celestial Wudayi with extreme boredom. He couldn't help but shake his head. With a slight thought, he and Celestial Wudayi disappeared from the chaotic Battle King domain. The news of the Battle King's domain being destroyed by the meteor will spread all over the world tomorrow. The vampires who lost their mana will be like food on a plate. They won't be able to resist a super meteor with a diameter of more than 10 kilometers. Wu Chen and Xiantu Muai appeared in the empty room. He had set up a flying thunder god in his house, so he could return to Itagami Island from War Monarch's domain with just a thought. Where are your little lovers? Immortal Muayi looked around curiously and found that there was no one in the room. She stayed in Dustless's room for a while. She was curious about this boss room. Without the master's permission, please do not wander around other people's houses. Especially my room. Dustless reminded her with a serious tone. He frowned and said, as for Shelley and the others. If I'm not mistaken, they might have gone to the Adillard Monastery. Cannon has a lot of kittens there. They even bought a lot of cat food before they left. I'm a little worried about them. Let's go take a look. Dustless rubbed his nose helplessly. He found that he couldn't eat or sleep well. There was a fire in his heart that he couldn't calm down. Unknowingly, his mind was affected by the departure of the girls. People change. Dustless's state of mind also changed slightly when he lived under the same roof as the girls. Chapter 1571. Immortal City Muayi stared at Dustless in astonishment. As an expert, most people were cold and emotionless. Usually, the more powerful a person was, the colder their personality would be. Not to mention so-called friends, even if it was a child or wife, they would turn a deaf ear and abandon them at any time. Dustless could barely be considered a good boss. Is there something on my face? Sensing Immortal City Muayi staring at him, Dustless subconsciously touched his face, thinking that there was something dirty on his face. No. Immortal City Muayi gave a short answer. Why are you staring at me? Really, Dustless muttered and left the house. Before he left, he didn't forget to say, stay at home. If you go out and cause trouble, I'll be the first person Nangong Natsuyu will find trouble with. What are you afraid of? Even if you cause a big problem, no one will blame you. Immortal City Muayi turned left and right, occasionally going to Dustless's room to sit and tossing around as if looking for something. Stop, you thief. Dustless angrily warned. This guy was too casual and didn't treat him as an outsider at all. Immortal City Mua Yi made a face and ignored Dustless, whose face had darkened. Can't you see that Nangang Natsuyu is very loyal to you? When I say loyal, I don't mean a simple superior and subordinate relationship. I know Natsuyu's personality. After all, we were once close friends. What are you trying to say? Dustless frowned and asked, if you have something to say, then say it. I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. You should know that compared to an unemployed person like you, I'm very busy. In any case, Natsuyu cares about you a lot. Immortal City Mua Yi said meaningfully. At the same time, he looked at Dustless with shining eyes for a while. I really don't know what she sees in you. Boring question. Knowing that Immortal City Mua Yi was going to say something boring, Dustless immediately closed the door and left. In the quiet corridor, Silver lowered his head and thought. His relationship with Nangang Natsuyu was a bit unusual. No matter how he looked at it, they didn't look like superior and subordinate. Dustless also didn't really treat Natsuyu as his superior. Why are you in a daze? Right at this moment, a black figure appeared before his eyes. She was small and exquisite, and she was cute like a porcelain doll. However, her entire body revealed a wisp of indescribable dignity, and it caused others to be unable to help but become nervous and treat her with respect. Natsuyu? Dustless asked, why are you looking for me? There don't seem to be any missions. Your little lovers are in trouble. Natsuyu said. There was a hint of dissatisfaction in her tone as she asked, I told you about the Tengaku tribute before. Why did you let Kanase Canon and the others go to the Audilad monastery? This is a serious matter. After speaking, Nangang Na Yu took out her lace-folding fan, as if she wanted to give Wu Chen a fan. Hearing this, Dustless was speechless. He couldn't say that he went to destroy the first true ancestors' Battle King domain. Moreover, he didn't let them go to the monastery. However, the stubborn Hanban Sayaka didn't listen. Dustless couldn't do anything about it. Anyway, let's go and take a look. With a sigh, Dustless grabbed Natsuki Nangang and jumped out of the window. He flew straight to the direction of the Audilad monastery. Natsuyu didn't resist being hugged by Dustless. It was a matter of life and death. Even if she wanted to mess around, she had to choose the right time. However, a faint blush appeared on her face. Ha 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 ha. What a bunch of idiots. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to catch you. Who would have thought that you would take my head? It seems that the heavens haven't abandoned me. A young man wearing a white shirt and a checkered hat laughed. This was the Adillard Monastery. Kanase Canon had taken care of all the stray cats here. She had planned to leave after buying cat food and feeding them. Who would have thought that she would run into Amatero Kagura? There are so many powerful psychics here. Tensuyu's eyes circled around the girls. He was secretly shocked. Ji Shelley, Hanban Sayaka, La Fria, Kanase Canon, and even Nagisa were all good psychics. Get lost if you don't want to die. You're the one who should be worried. Facing the powerful Tenzuka Gong, Hanzakaka Sayaka chose to fight back decisively. She stood side by side with Ji Shelley, and La Freya, who was holding the curse-type spear, was also waiting for an opportunity. Let's get down to business first. I'll deal with you later. Tian Zhonggong was not in a hurry to make a move. He walked slowly to a sculpture that looked a little old, and a deep fanaticism flashed in the depths of his eyes. Immediately, he took out a red sphere and pressed it into it. Gulp. The statue that looked as hard as iron started to move. After a few seconds, it all turned into liquid and fell to the ground. What's this? Azurewing Asakani and Kanase Canon were weak. When they saw this scene that defied the laws of physics, they both took a step back. Their eyes were filled with fear. You are important tools for me to resurrect that guy. I can't lose a single one of you. As long as I resurrect him, I can become a proper human again. Tensuyu smiled coldly. The unknown liquid on the ground was the spiritual blood of the sage. However, resurrecting it wasn't something that could be done easily. It would take a lot of effort, Kanae's cannon was an important tool to resurrect the sage. Chapter 1572. A large amount of bright red blood dripped down and covered the ground. Moreover, it was extremely viscous and extremely disgusting. However, the strange thing was that there was no smell of blood. These two girls are a little troublesome, but, taking a peek at Asami Azurewing and Hanae Natsuan, who were being protected by several people, Kung Amatsuka revealed a sly smile. It was so subtle that ordinary people would not be able to catch it. Capture the hostages and force them to compromise. It's not easy to control the sage's spiritual blood. Master's consciousness is still preserved in it. I have to use pseudo-core refinement to force her out. Tenzuka Gong thought to himself. At the same time, he walked to the corner and took out the items he had prepared in advance. Tian Zhong Gong, you ungrateful bastard. A stout middle-aged man scolded. The so-called tool was already a human being with a special pseudo-core inside his body. This was what Amaterasu Kung used to contaminate the sage's spiritual blood, and also to force his master out. Once the sage's spiritual blood was awakened, his master, Nina Yadalad, would also wake up. Ungrateful? At the end of the day, you're just using me. Get the hell in, director. Tenzuka Gong ignored him and kicked the stout young man into the sage's spirit blood. The transparent and viscous blood rushed over from all directions like wild cats that smelled blood. This person was instantly devoured. How treacherous. Sakura Huangban, Sayaka, Jizhua, Shelley, and the others cursed out loud. Although they didn't know the relationship between Tian Zhonggong and Jizhua, they knew each other without a doubt. Using an acquaintance as a test subject, you're really depraved. The tip of La Freya's cursed gun was already aimed at Tenzuka Gong's head. Her eyes were fixed on him, as if she was looking for the right opportunity to give him a fatal blow. Who asked him to want to use me? What makes him think he can obtain the power of the sage? What a joke. This is the price he has to pay for overestimating himself. Gong Tenzuka said disdainfully. At the same time, he stared cunningly at Kanae Natsuya and Aseo Blue Feathers. Ao 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 ao. At the same time, the surging blood on the ground suddenly roiled violently as if it had gone out of control. Countless sharp objects appeared and madly attacked the group. Not only were Jizhua, Shelley, and the other girls attacked, even Tinggong was attacked as well. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Jizhua, Shelley, and the others hadn't expected this sudden change of events. They hadn't thought that this disgusting blood could be so cruel, and all of them had suffered a merciless attack. Clang! Clang! Jizhua, Shelley, and the other girls were not weak either. The moment those sages' spirit blood darted over, they launched a fierce counterattack and launched dazzling attacks. Poochie! 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 The tentacle-like sage's spirit blood was immediately shattered. This terrifying tentacle that was as sharp as a blade was only scary on the surface. It ends here. Jizhua, Shelley, and Hanban Sayaka surrounded Tinggong. Tinggong stood there motionlessly, as if he had already accepted his fate. However, if someone saw the meaningful smile on his face, they would not think so. That's the end of it. Pointing at Kanae's cannon and Azurewing Aseo, Gong Amatsuka smirked. You two are strong, but your brains are average. I've already said that you two aren't my targets. Could it be? Jizhua, Shelley, and Huangban Sayaka glanced at each other, and both of them were stunned. Simultaneously, they turned around to look behind them, and the scene that greeted their eyes made them feel despair. Aseo Azurewing and Kanae's cannon had already been subdued by Gong Amatsuka's clone. How treacherous! Huangban Sha and Yaha abhorred evil. The weapon in her hand creaked as it reflected a cold light filled with killing intent. You still want to fight? Gong Amatsuka curled his lips and said disdainfully, you don't realize the desperate situation you're in. Put down your weapons, or I'll kill those two girls. Despicable. Jijua Shelley's expression changed, and she cursed. However, she had no choice but to put down her snow wolf. You better not fall into my hands. Hanban Sayaka's eyes were filled with ferocity. She threw down her weapon in anger, but she had no choice. They couldn't ignore Kanae's Cannon and Azure Wing Asayo's lives. You still dare to threaten me? So what if I'm despicable? With a cold face, Tenzuka Gong showed a victorious expression. He casually waved his hand, and all kinds of sharpness appeared. There were countless metal spikes. Bakudo 81, Sky Breaker. A transparent barrier as thin as a cicada's wing appeared in front of the two girls. This move. Is it him? Gong Amatsuka's eyelids twitched, and he looked around. He vaguely remembered that when he was beaten up by Dustless, he used the same move. Bang! 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 The barrier that looked like it was broken by a single stab was extremely sturdy, and it easily blocked the attack. The two girls behind the barrier were unharmed. Are you looking for me? You can't escape now. Suddenly, a cold voice came from behind. Tenzuo Gong shuddered and turned his head to look. Surprisingly, it was Wu Chen with a cold expression. Go to hell, asshole. Dustless's appearance immediately awakened the bad memories in Gong Amatsuka's mind. He remembered how he was beaten up by Dustless last time, and he was furious. His hand turned into a huge sword, and he swung it. Clang! Clang! Dustless's eyelids didn't even blink, and he grabbed the sword with a little force. Crack! Crack! The blade, which was completely made of compressed metal, collapsed in an instant, turning into steel fragments all over the ground. It was as simple as crushing an egg. It was very straightforward. Tenzuka Gong was annoyed. Chapter 1573. Tenzuka Gong was exasperated. His sword was not made of ordinary metal. It was made of highly compressed metal. Yet, it was easily crushed by Dustless. His self-esteem was crumbling bit by bit. You don't know when to advance or retreat at all. Do you want to die so much? Dustless frowned and asked. If he didn't kill Tinggong, he wouldn't be satisfied. He had never met anyone who loved to die so much. Kill me? I'm afraid you don't have the ability to do so. Tenzuka Gong sneered. Kanae's Cannon and the other psychics are mine. Then, hearing this, Wu Chen's eyelids lit up. His sight focused on Ting Zhonggong's body. A black light slowly spread out from his head. Please die. Amaterasu. The tiny black flame on his head suddenly grew a few hundred times bigger and engulfed his entire body. Tenzuka Gong was in trouble. Arg! A heart-wrenching scream shook the heavens. Tian Zhonggong was rolling on the ground crazily. He was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. However, no one pitied such a despicable person. He was the one who brought this humiliation upon himself. Are you all okay? His gaze swept across the girls one by one. When Wu Chen's gaze landed on Shallow Blue Feather, he paused for a few seconds. Looking at the marks on her fair skin, he couldn't help but frown. What happened? Azure Wing was stunned. She looked at the wound on her hand and said, Strange. You were fine just now. How did you get hurt? Is it because of those tentacle monsters? Azure Wing lowered her head and pondered. She seemed to be trying to figure out where she got hurt. Some things can't be avoided. Is that Nina Yadalad? Dustless sighed in his heart. He sensed a special energy entering Azure Wing's body. However, he did not stop it. There was no harm in it. Dustless could see that the wound on Azure Wing's hand was slowly recovering. Senior, how should we deal with this guy? Jijua Shelley pointed at Tenzuka Gong and said angrily, this kind of person should be purified as soon as possible. That's right. Hanban Sayaka nodded in agreement. Buzz buzz buzz, it was also at this moment that a purple light suddenly appeared in the void, forming the pattern of a magic array. Immediately after, a large number of chains shot out from the magic array, all of them shooting towards Tenzuka Gong. Nayu? Seeing this, Dustless shook his head and said, "This guy's body is a little strange. He can liquefy. This kind of thing is useless." Gulp. Sure enough, just as Dustless said, the moment the chains bound Tenzuka Gong, his body instantly collapsed and turned into a pile of liquid metal. This brat is quite troublesome. Natsuki stood on the magic array with a frown on her face. Her eyebrows were almost knitted together. She was unhappy that she had lost face in front of Dustless and the others. Keek, gloomy laughter suddenly sounded, and the liquid Tian Zhonggong's body was compressed again. "With your means, it's too difficult to kill me." Tingong laughed complacently, unusually savage. "Is that so?" Dustless laughed eerily a few times, and a sinister arc appeared on his face. Thump. Tenzuka Gong's heart skipped a beat, and he had a bad premonition. He then shouted, "Just you wait, the next time we meet, I'll kill all of you." Next time? Hearing this, Dustless sneered and mocked mercilessly, "Now, you'll have to pay a heavy price for this." He focused his gaze on Tenzuka Gong's body and activated his eye power. God's might. A huge ripple appeared on Tenzuka Gong's body, and then a black hole appeared, rapidly devouring his liquid body. "Damn it, what is this?" Tenzuka Gong shouted in panic, and looked at the black hole in fear. He realized that his body was about to be devoured by the black hole. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Just as Tenzuka Gong was about to be devoured, a black light suddenly appeared, and the direction it was aiming at was Tenzuka Gong's body. Boom boom boom. Tenzuka Gong's body exploded, and he turned into liquid metal all over the ground. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Then, an unexpected black dot descended from the sky. It was a white suit, golden hair, and a handsome face. Vatler? Dustless's calm eyes had a rare ripple, and he asked calmly, "The first true ancestor's War King domain was attacked by a meteor, and 99% of the area was destroyed. Almost all the people were killed, so why aren't you dead? And, your aura seems to have gotten a lot stronger. Why am I not dead?" "That's a good question." Vatler's face had a smug smile, and then he laughed, borrowing your words, "If there's an exception in this world, then without a doubt, that person is me. This kid's aura is not right, he has Koju's aura." Dustless narrowed his eyes and looked at Vatler carefully, and he said in surprise, "Could it be that you devoured Koju completely? If that's the case, it's not surprising that you're still alive. You're indeed strong. You can even see that I did devour Koju." After a moment of surprise, Vatler's face was filled with passion, and he said loudly, "Not just Koju, but also immortal Muayi. Thanks to you and Shin de Muayi, I devoured another great person." Chapter 1574. A powerful figure? Dustless stared at Vatler. As a true ancestor, Akatsuki Koju was already a powerful figure. Judging from Vatler's arrogant tone, it was obvious that he had devoured an existence stronger than Akatsuki Koju. "You didn't devour the first true ancestor, did you?" Everyone stared at Vatler, tongue-tied. After devouring 2 true ancestor-level vampires in succession, it was easy to imagine Vatler's strength. He definitely soared to the heavens in a single bound. Ha 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 ha. As expected of my old enemy. Hearing this, Vatler laughed maniacally. His arms trembled as he shouted, "Yes, thanks to you and Xian de Muaya's interference in the War King's domain, all of our powers were suppressed. All vampires, whether they were nobles or vampires from the apocalypse, were turned into ordinary humans. True ancestors were no exception. I took advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to devour the first true ancestor, and at the same time, Akatsuki Koju became my meal." Ha ha ha. At the end of his sentence, Vatler let out a maniacal laugh. "Life is unpredictable. I didn't expect you to be the one to benefit," Dustless sighed. He didn't expect this to happen. Through the Tensigan, Dustless could see the majestic demonic energy in Vatler's body. After devouring 2 true ancestors, Vatler's strength had surpassed that of a true ancestor. It seems that you are the biggest winner. Dustless sighed. Ordinary people would be scared to even see a true ancestor, let alone devouring a true ancestor. Vatler's success wasn't without reason. Don't you feel like you shot yourself in the foot? Ha 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 ha. This is all thanks to you, Mr. Old Enemy. Vatler laughed maniacally. He opened his eyes wide and stared at Wu Qin, trying to catch a glimpse of pain on his face. However, Wu Qin did not move at all. There was no change in his expression. Shot myself in the foot? Are you an idiot? Wu Qin sneered unreservedly. Although your appearance is unexpected, it can barely relieve my boredom. In this boring life, only the existence of a clown like you can make me feel the joy and value of living. You. Even if you are arrogant, you should know when to stop. Do you think I am still the old me? Wrong, a big mistake. Vatler said arrogantly. As long as I want to, you won't even have time to react. Bang. 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 Before Vatler finished his sentence, an explosion sounded in the air. Boom. Boom. Crack crack. Vatler's abdomen caved in. His abdomen was almost penetrated through his chest. Vatler's face was contorted in pain. The immense pain caused his body to lose support, and he rolled on the ground in agony. How can you defeat me? Vatler looked at the approaching black figure. His expression was cold and filled with disdain and disdain. It was as if he was looking at an insect. Vatler's pride was hurt and he roared, "Sorcery, you must have used some sorcery. A mere bat. You seem to have lost your sense of measure. Do you really think the so-called true ancestors are invincible? Do you really think you can fight me after devouring 2 true ancestors? Let me tell you, even if I devour 100 true ancestors, I can still easily destroy you. You don't even know who is standing in front of you, and you still think you can defeat me?" The sound of rolling thunder exploded in the boundless horizon. The surroundings were dead silent, dead silent. A few hundred years ago, I stepped into a realm you cannot imagine. To be honest, I don't even know how strong I am now. Dustless grabbed Vatler's head and stared at his caved-in abdomen. His fingertips emitted large amounts of light. Crack crack crack. A huge flash of light crackled, and the surrounding space twisted and was shattered by the energy ball. Then Dustless threw Vatler into the distant sky like he was throwing trash. A huge energy ball appeared along with it. Wang Su's flash. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A huge silver beam of light pierced through the sky, and the space in its path exploded, leaving a conspicuous trace as it rushed towards Vatler. Boom boom boom. The void flash suddenly exploded, and the blue sky was covered by a flash of light. Everyone hurriedly closed their eyes, or else they might be blinded by the light. Gulp. The girls choked and looked at Dustless in shock. It was the first time they had seen Dustless go crazy. Cold sweat flowed down their backs, and the overwhelming power made them gasp for breath. When a strong person's strength reached a certain level, they would develop a unique aura. Just like the Haoshiku Haki, it had a powerful deterrent force. I didn't hit him. After that kid swallowed 2 true ancestors, his strength really increased. I almost pierced his abdomen, but he could still escape. Unbelievable. Not only did his strength increase, but his body's recovery also increased. A cold voice suddenly sounded. Dustless turned around and saw that it was Nagisa. No, it was more appropriate to call her Aurora. TSK TSK TSK. This is going to be a good show. This guy swallowed Akatsuki Koju and indirectly angered Aurora. Dustless gloated. In fact, he wanted to thank Vatler. He was worried about how to get rid of Akatsuki Koju without Aurora noticing, and now Vatler had helped him a lot. He took the initiative to take the blame for Dustless. Sure enough, male protagonists were often the best scapegoats. Chapter 1575. Dustless was quite excited. He had guessed that Vattler would kill Koju, but that was only after Koju had awakened all of his familiars. He didn't expect Vattler to be so eager to devour Koju, which indirectly angered Agrora. But, staring at the raging Agrora, Dustless hesitated. Vattler was no longer the same as before. Not only did he devour Akatsuki Koju, but he also used the power of the Dark Oath Book to devour the first true ancestor. With the power of 2 true ancestors, his strength would inevitably increase. Would Agrora be his match? Agrora, I advise you not to humiliate yourself. You're not my target. If you try to stop me, I'll let you have a taste of your familiar's power. Also, if you don't know what's good for you, I don't mind taking back your 12th familiar. Vattler was clearly not interested in Agrora. His gaze was fixed on Dustless, and the pitch-black mana bursting out of his body was almost solid. It was filled with a soul-stirring power, and its precision, range, and quantity were all greater than Agrora's. Boom! 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 Agrora wasn't someone who would back down easily. Her immature body once again erupted with a burst of ice-cold magic power, and the surrounding temperature dropped by several hundred times. It became incomparably cold and almost instantly engulfed the surrounding forest, turning them all into ice sculptures. Seriously, this guy. Dustless quickly ran to Jijua, Shelley, and the others. He opened his golden Kinsusanu to protect them. He knew that this was Agrora's familiar, the Enchantress's deep ice. Its ability was to freeze everything. How did Nagisa become like this? Blue Feather asked worriedly. In her current state, Nagisa was as cold as ice. She was like an ice goddess who didn't want anyone to get close to her. She was the complete opposite of her usual optimistic self. She was completely isolated from the world. That bone-piercing killing intent made Blue Feather feel even more fearful. Agrora probably isn't Vattler's match. Dustless shook his head. Honestly speaking, Dustless wasn't optimistic about her chances. After all, Vattler had devoured 2 primogenitors. There was no doubt that he had mana, and judging from his confident tone, he even had Koju's familiar under his control. Who ambushed me? Right at this time, Dustless suddenly felt a piercing pain at his waist. He grimaced in pain as he turned his head and scolded angrily, "If you dare to pinch me next time, your buttocks will bloom." The one who ambushed Dustless without warning was Natsuki Nangong. Taking advantage of Wu Chen's carelessness, her jade hand swept towards the tender flesh of Wu Chen's waist, and unceremoniously made a 360-degree turn. When did the first primogenitor's War King domain get destroyed? What's the meaning of Vattler's breath? Did you do it? Natsuki Nangong's eyes fixed on Dustless. I only killed a few stinky bats. What's there to be surprised about? Also, the most annoying thing is that Vattler, that eyesore, didn't get smashed to death by the meteor and even devoured the first primogenitor and Koju. Why is that damned brat so lucky? Dustless was speechless. He felt that Vattler had stolen Koju's protagonist aura. You destroyed the entire Darkness Empire just like that. You're starting a war. A dangerous character like you is a cancer that will bring disaster to the world. Natsuki Nangong's chest heaved up and down. She was so shocked by the news that her worldview had collapsed. Ever since the primogenitors appeared, they were considered invincible. Now, Dustless had destroyed the War King domain in the blink of an eye. Natsuki Nangong felt dizzy and her brain couldn't handle it. But I saw on TV yesterday that the War King domain was going to sign a peace treaty with other countries. Now that it's destroyed. Isn't it too fast? It's impossible to destroy an entire Darkness Empire in a day. Natsuki Nangong said doubtfully. Natsuki, there's nothing to doubt. This is the truth. I was the one who destroyed the War King domain with him. I saw it with my own eyes. A melodious and lazy sound of nature drifted over. Following the source of the sound, what came into view was Xian Demuyi, who was wearing a kimono. You too, Natsuki Nangong fell silent. She found it hard to accept. The people in the War King domain weren't idiots. They wouldn't stretch out their necks for others to slaughter. Moreover, there were at least a few 100 million people in the War King domain. How could they be wiped out in a day? No matter how unbelievable it is, the truth is the truth. Wu Chen held his head indifferently, as if it had nothing to do with him. I used the power of the Dark Oath book to eliminate all the superpowers and magic of the War King domain. Naturally, the true ancestor was also weakened. Then, Dustless summoned a giant meteorite from space. Summoned a meteor? Natsuki Nangong's eyes widened. She stared at Dustless as though she was looking at a freak. Was this something a human could do? But how did Vatler escape the meteor attack? Immortal Muayi could not understand. His heart was full of doubts. That's simple. Dustless had a clear mind. The Dark Oath book is powerful and can restrict the power of a primogenitor. However, after Vatler devoured the first primogenitor and Koju, his strength has surpassed the primogenitor level. Every item has its own limit, just like how my Dark Oath book can't restrict it. I reckon that after Vatler devoured Koju and the first primogenitor, he also obtained a power greater than the Dark Oath book. That's why it's useless against him. It's normal for him to use a power greater than a primogenitor to avoid being locked on by heaven's love. Everything had a limit, and Immortal Muayi's Dark Oath book was no exception. Chapter 1576. Natsuya remained silent. She knew Xiandu Muyi well. There was no need for him to lie to her about something like this. It was impossible to hide something like this, and it would probably spread across the world by tomorrow. She stared at the calm Dustless in shock. She was 100% sure that the person who destroyed the Battle Monarch's domain was the doing of this seemingly harmless fellow. Senior, did you really destroy the first true ancestor's Battle Monarch domain? Jijua Shelley raised her voice and stood in front of Dustless with her snow wolf. You. Seeing this, Wu Chen was even more speechless. Looking at the snow cloud wolf, he asked with a headache, "You're not planning to avenge the first true ancestor, are you?" If that's the case. Avenge? What a joke. Before Dustless could finish, Hanban Sayaka stepped out and said with hatred, "The so-called vampires are all evil people who ride on the heads of humans. The destruction of the Battle Monarch domain is a blessing from the heavens." Ha 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 ha, La Freya was the most excited. She was so excited that she started dancing. La Freya's country, the kingdom of Aldija, bordered the Battle Monarch domain. Some conflicts were inevitable, but the kingdom of Aldija was no match for the Battle Monarch domain. It was inevitable that they would be bullied and threatened. Now that the enemy that had accumulated years of grievances was destroyed, of course they would be happy. After all, the other party was the powerful Empire of Darkness, second to none in terms of strength. They also had a colossal existence like the true ancestor and countless vampires under their command. This wasn't something the Aldisha kingdom could contend against. Mwah. While Dustless was feeling helpless, La Freya pursed her lips and left a light kiss on his face to show her gratitude. Seems like the true ancestor's Empire of Darkness is hated. He stared at La Freya in bewilderment. He hadn't been in this world for long, so he didn't feel much about the true ancestor. But for other humans, the true ancestor was a nightmare. If it weren't for the Treaty of Sanctum, perhaps the human race would have already ceased to exist. Boom boom boom. Bang bang bang. A fierce shockwave suddenly burst out and Agrora, who had been fighting with Vatler, was sent flying by the boundless mana. He was as weak as a kite with its string cut. Just as I expected. Vatler's strength has increased tremendously after devouring 2 primogenitors. He's even stronger than the average primogenitor. Not only that, he can also use Koju's familiars. He might even be able to use the first primogenitor's familiar. TSK, no wonder he dared to cause trouble for me. He has enough capital this time. Dustless nodded slightly. The current Vatler barely had the qualifications to be looked at in a new light. 10,000 mammoth heavenly attraction. Dustless stretched out his hand to grab Agrora as he watched her fly away. He joked, "Miss Agrora, with your current ability, it seems that you're far inferior to Vatler." "Who?" Agrora finally calmed down after falling into Kensusanu's protection. She glared at Vatler, who was laughing maniacally, and felt a sense of defeat. Dustless was speaking the truth. Vatler was no longer the same as before. His strength had increased exponentially, and he could control familiars that even Koju couldn't. Hee. Dustless lowered his head and laughed dryly. He revealed a sinister smile. "Aren't you a vampire? Why don't you suck my blood? Who knows, there might be an unexpected surprise." "Are you crazy?" Hearing this, Nangong Natyue and the others were stunned. Just how strange was this guy? How could he take the initiative to let others suck his blood? "It's a good idea, but it's useless. I'm only a consciousness now. My blood-sucking instincts have already disappeared." Agrora's eyes dimmed. "That's a pity. Looks like I'll have to deal with this kid myself." Wu Qin showed a disappointed expression when he heard that. Then, his eyes lit up and he said, "Although your current strength is worthy of special treatment, you are just a bat after all." "Is that so?" Vatler glared at Dustless in Kensusanu and shouted, "I'll break your shell now. Let's see if your body is as tough as your shell." Pa pa pa. As soon as his voice fell, golden lightning swept across the void, and all of them blasted onto Susanu. Boom boom boom. A huge roar resounded through the clouds. The unparalleled lightning was extremely powerful, and the surrounding forest was directly razed to the ground, revealing the bare, scorched earth. However, what surprised Vatler was that the golden Kensusanu was unharmed. Dustless's location was like a god's domain. Even if he used everything he had, he couldn't break through the golden monster's powerful defense. "Let's see how strong your shell is." Vatler's face twitched. His right arm suddenly turned black, covered with red lines, and boundless mana spread out. After devouring Koju, Vatler had gained control of Koju's familiar. Although it required a spirit medium, it was a piece of cake for Vatler. As long as he could awaken the familiar, it didn't matter whether it was a man or a woman. "Since I'm not your match in a one-on-one battle, all of you come out." Familiars number 3, Dragon Snake Quicksilver, number 5, Lion's Gold, number 9, Twin Horn Scarlet, number 11, Aqua White Steel. Chapter 1577. Vatler roared with all his might. In front of him, 4 ferocious-looking super beasts appeared, each of them exuding a domineering aura that could shake a person's soul. Their eyes were filled with awe and veneration. Boom! 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 The 4 vassal beasts attacked fiercely, and a fierce shockwave hit Susanu head-on. Susanu began to sway, and a kakaka sound could be heard. The effect of a few familiars working together is not bad. Dustless looked around and found that the miniature Kensusanu wasn't strong enough to fend off the 4 familiars. Small cracks had already appeared on its surface. He's indeed different from a true ancestor. Is he stronger than a true ancestor? Dustless stared at Vatler curiously. The incomplete Kensusanu wasn't even 1/10 as strong as the complete Kensusanu, but the fact that Vatler could destroy it showed how strong he was. This is just the beginning. You underestimated me. Seeing that his attack was finally effective, Vatler shouted in a loud voice, "Familiars number 4, Silver Mist, come out as well." After saying that, more than 5 familiars appeared. It was an extremely powerful lineup. Vatler was surrounded by them. Not only that, Vatler even awakened his original snake-like familiar and brought out all of his assets. Gulp. Jijua, Shelley, and the others choked with sobs. Looking at the dozens of familiars, they felt like their brains weren't enough. Vatler was ridiculously strong. The familiars bared their fangs and looked ferocious, as if they were going to devour their prey. At the same time, the familiars under Vatler's control launched powerful attacks. Each familiar had a different ability. Colorful magic power exploded in the air, filling the air with colorful lights. Boom! 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 Lightning flashed, shaking the sky. The fifth familiar, Lion's Gold, was the first to launch a powerful attack. A large number of lightning bolts fell from the sky. Roar! Not only that, but the rest of the familiars were also working well together, much better than Koju's half-baked familiars. The ninth familiar, Scarlet Feet, leaped into the air and gently tapped its feet on the ground, causing ripples to spread out. Bzzz. Bzzz. The destructive light wave was unrestrained, and finally, it eroded the incomplete Susanoo. The originally weak crack suddenly emitted a ka sound, and the originally negligible crack became bigger and bigger. Boom! 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 At the same time, the fifth familiar, Lion's Gold, also roared towards the sky. Dense and irregular golden lightning bolts pounced towards Susanoo's head and bombarded it with full force. Boom! 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 After receiving consecutive devastating blows, the badly damaged Susanoo was finally unable to resist, and helplessly headed towards collapse. This badly damaged Susanoo was originally a dregs. It belonged to the type with thin skin, and there was a world of difference between it and a high-grade Susanoo released at full strength. This is a good opportunity. Get rid of those people for me, Dragon Snake Mercury. Vatler's eyes flashed. He waved his hand, and a giant bird flew out. It opened its mouth full of fangs and bit at Dustless and the others. This is bad. This guy really knows how to cooperate. Agrora frowned. He didn't expect Vatler to be able to use the power of the fourth primogenitor so well. He was different, and more suitable than Koju to be the fourth primogenitor. You deserve praise. Dustless smiled. He looked at Vatler for a few seconds, then said coldly, but I hate people who overestimate themselves. No one can save you this time. I will kill you. Dustless's scarlet eyes turned at full speed. Black flames danced in his eyes as he locked onto Dragon Snake Mercury. Amaterasu. The black flames were aimed at Dragon Snake Quicksilver. They thought they could burn him alive, but what happened next was unexpected. Amaterasu didn't burn the target as usual. It couldn't burn the familiar at all. It could only watch as Dragon Snake Mercury pounced at it. What's going on? The girls asked in surprise. They weren't normal people, so they could see what was going on. Dragon Snake Mercury's body seemed to have disappeared in an instant. This guy, Dustless frowned and looked at Vatler in surprise. Vatler was a battle maniac, but he was surprisingly smart. This is his fourth familiar, Silver Shell Mist. Its ability is an expanded version of the vampire's ability to turn into mist. Creatures and buildings can be turned into mist within a certain range. Everything will lose their original form and substance. This ability to turn substances into mist is one of the fastest ways to move around. Without a physical body, it also meant that Dustless's attack was useless. It was like hitting the air and would not have any effect. I told you before, don't treat me like an idiot like Koju. That kid may be a true ancestor, but if I want to kill him, it'll be a piece of cake. Vatler said proudly. Ao 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 ao. At the same time, the Dragon Snake's Mercury attacked rapidly. Its big mouth full of fangs opened and emitted a dense cold air. It seemed that it was going to swallow Wu Chen. He's forcing me to make a big fuss. He wanted to take care of Vatler easily, but he didn't expect him to be so skillful with his familiars. Even the miniature Kin Susanoo was destroyed. Let's be serious. Otherwise, Vatler will really think he's invincible. At most, this island will sink. At worst, I'll give them the Warlord's Domain as compensation. Chapter 1578. Dustless murmured. Hearing him, the faces of Ji Zhua, Shelley, Nangong Nayu, and the others changed dramatically. They all stared at Dustless with gloomy faces. "Don't look at me like you want to eat me alive. This guy is the one who forced me. If I don't show my true face, Vatler will really think that I'm made of mud." Dustless's face was as cold as frost. His chiseled face was filled with coldness. "I also want to see if you have 8 heads, or if you have horns on your head." Vatler snorted, unwilling to be outdone. "Ow, ow, ow. Woo, woo, woo." At the same time, he waved his hand and summoned several vassal beasts. Due to the size of the vassal beasts, they swayed as they walked, causing the ground to shake. Boom, boom, boom. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Once again, thick golden lightning descended from the sky. It was as frightening as the punishment of the heavens. Pa pa pa. Lightning bolts that were powerful enough to flatten a mountain surged around Dustless. His body was constantly being destroyed, severely ravaged by the scorching heat and lightning. However, he stood tall and didn't fall. His calm expression didn't change at all. If one looked carefully, they would be astonished to discover that although Wu Chen's body was continuously destroyed, his wounds would overflow with a warm light that rapidly healed the wounds on his body. When he was attacked by the lightning, he would be healed almost instantly. How is this possible? Vatler's mouth was wide open, his jaw almost dislocated. He stared at Dustless and subconsciously rubbed his eyes, thinking that he was hallucinating. However, after wiping his eyes, he saw an even more unbelievable scene. He said in a daze, "Is this guy immune to my lightning? Since you are immune to my attacks, then why can't I be immune to yours?" Dustless glanced at him and asked calmly, "You think you are special? Do you think you can do something that others can't? Don't be naive. Your current level. I actually reached it a few hundred years ago." Nangong Na Yu and the others all had strange expressions on their faces. A few hundred years ago? Could it be that this guy was already a few hundred years old? Is he an old man? Nangong Naidenyu had a strange expression on her face. Dustless was only 17 or 18 years old. Old man? Dustless's mouth twitched and he glared at Nangong Nayu. "Although you can turn into mist, but..." Dustless suddenly said with a strange smile, "In front of absolute power, all abilities are just a joke." Boom, boom, boom. Dustless chuckled as he stared at the mist in the sky. "The only reason you can turn into mist is because you're borrowing the power of the 4th familiar, Cloud Shell. The mist it spits out can turn everything into mist. But if the mist disappears, will you still be of any use? Make my fog disappear?" Vatler laughed and mocked loudly, "Are you crazy? Don't say such childish words. You have to understand that the mist created by my familiar has already covered the entire island. Do you think you can make it disappear just because you want to? So what?" Dustless asked casually. At the same time, he took out a slender tachi and shouted, "Bankai, tragic fire tachi." Buzz buzz buzz, the unassuming saber immediately emitted a wisp of hot steam. Nothing else changed except that the saber became even more ancient and weathered. "You think you can get rid of my mist with this stupid tachi? Dream on." Vatler curled his lips and was about to laugh when he raised his head. His expression changed drastically. In the void, a large amount of water evaporated inexplicably. The fog that covered the sky was also quickly dispersing. Suddenly, the air became extremely dry. All the water in the sky was evaporating at an accelerated rate. What is going on? Ji Zhua and the others were shocked. They were shocked to find that the water in their bodies was evaporating at an accelerated rate. Their sweat was gone with the wind. Not only that, but the surrounding wild animals, flowers, and trees all turned yellow and withered in an instant. The lush green grassland turned yellow and withered. This guy, Natsuki, stared at Dustless. She could clearly feel that all the water in the sky was evaporating and the mist was dispersing. The essence of the mist is water. If I evaporate all the water in the world, will you still be able to create this mist? The answer is no. If possible, I don't want to use Zenka no Tachi. This Zenka no Tachi is too powerful. The moment I use Bankai, all the water in the world will evaporate. Dustless explained in a soft voice. At the same time, the mist in the sky was dispersing and was being devoured by Zenka no Tachi. That's impossible. Vatler's face turned green. He could feel all the water in the world evaporating. Even the lakes around him turned into dry land. All the water sources were wiped out. Die. He calmly glanced at the 5 vassal beasts. Their true forms were completely exposed, and he swung his Zenka no Tachi at the terrified vassal beasts. Zenka no Tachi, north, ashes of heaven and earth. Puchi. The saber aura that seemed as weak as a breeze immediately revealed its ferocious side. When it came into contact with the familiar beast, it didn't release any explosive flames or slash at all. It simply dismembered and devoured the familiar beast, vanishing without a trace in the blink of an eye. One swing and one end, this was the most realistic portrayal of Zenka no Tachi. Chapter 1579. How many unbelievable abilities does this guy have? And what's with that weapon? Could it be the weapon of the gods? Vatler's face turned green as he stared at Zenka no Tachi. He couldn't hide the greed in his eyes. This weapon was too overpowered. Vatler's heart raced as he was tempted by Zenka no Tachi. He was even more excited than when he devoured the primogenitor. From the attack range, scale, and power, Zenka no Tachi was far more powerful than the familiars. It was as if the entire world was under the shadow of Zenka no Tachi. Gulp. Vatler's heart was about to jump out of his chest. That super weapon should be mine. Only someone like me can wield it. Vatler stared at the Zenka no Tachi in Dustless's hand with a pained expression as if Dustless had stolen his treasure. Did a donkey kick this guy in the head? Dustless had a strange expression on his face as he sent out another wave of Zenka no Tachi. It was normal to be greedy for Zenka no Tachi. Thinking back to when old man Yamamoto released his Zanpakuto, Dustless was also envious and jealous. All in all, Vatler's performance was within Dustless's expectations. Shoo shoo shoo. The sharp sound of something breaking through the air resounded through the clouds. Raising his head, he saw a super hot storm sweeping over. Everything it came in contact with was turned into ashes. Zenka no Tachi, north, ashes of heaven and earth. The target of the Zanpakuto was the familiar in the sky, crimson with 2 horns. It was going to crush the crimson horse like a whale. Roar 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 roar. Needless to say, the 2-horned Shinfei would definitely not sit and wait for death. He immediately roared towards the sky. His sharp horns lightly pointed towards the void, and a wisp of energy rippled out in the horizon, attempting to stop or even destroy the blade that was attacking him. Puchi. The idea was good, but the reality was too cruel. The ripple of energy that didn't materialize was vaporized by the high temperature of Zenka no Tachi before it could reach the Zanpakuto. Ao 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 ao. The 2-horned crimson cried out in fear, asking for help from Vatler. However, Vatler was petrified, also stunned by the ferocious Zenka no Tachi. For a moment, he was frozen in place. Swish. Swish. Seeing that its master was scared silly by the enemy, the double-horned crimson quickly moved its body and waved its 4 limbs, trying to escape the lock of the saber aura. This guy was too scary. Puchi. Compared to the galloping stellar energy, the 2-horned crimson was simply too slow. It was dismembered in the blink of an eye, just like the other familiars. He did not release bursting flames, nor did he release a slash. He only erased everything that came into contact with him. Damn it. Seeing this, Vatler cursed loudly. He hadn't expected Dustless to be so terrifying. He was practically a god of death. Anything that came into contact with him would evaporate into thin air. All of you, attack together. Vatler ordered the remaining familiars to attack together. This was his last desperate attempt. Since he couldn't fight him alone, he could only order all his familiars to surround him. Laughable. Dustless shook his head in disdain, a ruthless glint in his eyes. His entire body began to glow like a scorching sun, golden flames burning fiercely. Awoo! The familiars opened their mouths. Just as they were about to swallow Dustless whole, the golden flames on Dustless's skin suddenly grew several times larger. Zenka Flame Tachi, Sunbreaker Prison Robe. The golden flames were dazzling to the extreme. The attacking familiars were instantly obliterated. Several of the familiars that had wanted to attack Dustless were instantly annihilated. The terrifying heat of over 15 million degrees pulverized everything. Zenka Flame Tachi's highest temperature was close to the core of the sun, around 15 million degrees. The familiars were burned alive before they could even get close to Dustless. You're the only one left. Dustless slowly approached Vatler, a dangerous light flickering in his eyes. Damn it. Vatler was drenched in cold sweat. He didn't dare look Dustless in the eye. He was afraid that he would fall to his knees and surrender. I won't kill you. I'll just take your soul, and then I'll throw you into the sea to feed the sharks. Before Dustless could finish, Agurola gnashed his teeth and glared at Vatler. He looked like he wanted nothing more than to skin Vatler alive. Idiot, I hope you don't piss off any more women in your next life. He glanced at Vatler with pity. If he wanted to blame someone, he could only blame this guy for devouring Koju and angering Agurola. He was determined to avenge Koju. Go to hell. Zenka Flame Tachi's power was suppressed to the limit. Dustless's body flashed, and under Vatler's shocked gaze, the flames swept towards his head. Poochie. Vatler's head was separated from his body. Dustless had killed him with a single slash. Humph, letting him die so easily is too easy for this hateful guy. In my opinion, it would be better to throw him into the sea to feed the sea creatures. Agurola coldly snorted. His eyes were red, as if he was still grieving over Koju's death. Then he'll contaminate the fishes. Dustless said half-jokingly. The girls burst into laughter. However, Dustless decided to kill Vatler after careful consideration. This guy had devoured 2 primogenitors. If he did as Agurola said and fed him to the fishes, what if he revived? A primogenitor's regenerative abilities were abnormal. Dustless felt that it was safer to kill Vatler directly. Chapter 1580. Expressionlessly staring at Vatler's body, Dustless finally decided to take the final step, which was to extract his soul. The soul of a true ancestor was undeniably powerful, and there were 2 of them. In addition, Vatler himself was the monster closest to a true ancestor. Devouring them would be beneficial to Dustless. You guys go back first. Leave this place to me and Agrora. Waving his hand, Dustless signaled the others to go back. You too. Gazing at Dustless and Agrora suspiciously, Natsuki sensed something unusual. Her bright eyes swept over Dustless and Agrora, trying to find a flaw. Us too? Do you have any malicious intentions? Agurola's small face looked rather strange when she heard this. She stared at Wu Chen in a puzzled manner. I remember you guys still have school, right? It's almost 1 o'clock now. Be careful not to be late. Dustless reminded Ji Zhua and Shelley out of kindness. Oh no, I'll let you go this time. The girls retreated in fear. For good students like them, being late for class was a serious matter. What do you plan to do? 10 seconds later, all the girls scattered and rushed to the Kai-Hai Academy. Only Nangong Nayu, Agurola, and Dustless were left. The one who spoke was Natsuki. She continued, don't tell me you want to. Nangong's eyes, which were as exquisite as spring water, were filled with a strange expression. Seeing Dustless staring at Agurora's pretty face without blinking, she suddenly understood something. She said in disdain, you want to kill Koju's sister as soon as he dies? You'll even get Agrora for free. Buy one get one free business. Kid, you're quite scheming. Poochie. Hearing this, Dustless spat out a mouthful of blood. The corners of his mouth twitched. Don't think you can slander me as you wish just because you're my boss. I can sue you for slander. You should know the consequences of slandering me. Dustless stared at Natsuki. He was sure that she did it on purpose. I can revive you. Staring at Shao Nagisa's face, Dustless knew that Aurora was the only one controlling this body. He said confidently, with my eye power, it won't be a problem to use the outer Tao, reincarnation heavenly art. Oh, upon hearing that, Aurora only responded softly and wasn't as excited as imagined. Then, he suddenly realized something urgent and asked, can we revive the ancient city? Absolutely not. Dustless refused without thinking. Resurrecting Akatsuki Koju? What a joke. That annoying vampire bat was finally dead. Who would resurrect him now? Is that so? Aurora's bright eyes clearly dimmed, without any luster to speak of. It could be seen that Koju's sudden departure was a big blow to her. I'm sure that if Koju's spirit is in heaven, he would want you to live on. Natsuki added, you can't waste his good intentions. That's right. Dustless gave her a thumbs up and sighed inwardly at how good Natsuki was at talking. He then said softly, the first true ancestor's soul, Koju's soul, and Vatler's soul have completely fused. The three of them have fused into one. That's why Vatler's strength increased explosively. Next, I'll use the same method to fuse the two of you. You mean? Aurora was stunned for a moment before asking in astonishment, you're willing to let me devour their souls? Did I hear wrongly? After devouring the souls of three powerhouses, anyone's strength will increase by leaps and bounds. You didn't hear wrongly. Looking into Aurora's eyes, Dustless calmly replied, in the end, it's yours. Vatler and the first true ancestor's souls are only incidental interest. This guy is quite open-minded. Natsuki felt a trace of admiration for Dustless's attitude. Anyone would feel a desire to possess a true ancestor's soul. Even she couldn't let go of it. Dustless's carefree attitude made Natsuki view him in a new light. In truth, this weak soul had little effect on Dustless. Let's go to Koju's mother's place to retrieve your main body. With that, the three of them left together. Their destination was Koju's mother's house, Koju's laboratory. Koju's sudden death was a great blow to his mother. Koju's mother was exceedingly sad. She even almost fainted. When she learned that Vatler had fused with the first true ancestor and Koju's soul, she knew that it was already too late. Even if she could revive Koju, he wouldn't be the same person as before. Inside the cold and deathly silent laboratory, lying on the experiment table was a pretty girl. She wasn't very old, probably between 12 to 14 years old. She had a head of gorgeous rainbow-colored hair and a pale and powerless face. This was Aurora's original body. Can such an unimaginable thing really be done? Koju's mother looked at Dustless suspiciously. Although she hated Dustless very much. Who told this guy to bully her son? But now that Koju has died, and Dustless killed Vatler, it was equivalent to avenging her son. She had a good impression of Dustless. Unimaginable thing? Reviving a person is just a small matter for me. Dustless said with a light smile, full of confidence. Staring at Aurora on the operating table, Dustless suddenly shouted and activated Rinnegan Sharingan. Outer Path, Rinnegan Technique. Chapter 1581. Everyone's gaze was fixed on Dustless. They did not expect him to have such a heaven-defying ability to bring someone back from the dead. Was this something a human could do? At the very least, none of them believed that anyone could do it. I would like to see if you are really that capable. Nangong Natsuyu placed her hands on her hips. Her expression was extremely proud, as if she was waiting for Dustless to fail so that she could ruthlessly ridicule him. However, she was destined not to have such an opportunity. A layer of azure light covered Aurora's body. It was like a miraculous elixir that completely sunk into Aurora's body. Following that, a miraculous scene gradually occurred. Aurora's pale face gradually regained some color. Her cold body also rapidly warmed up. She could even move her fingers slightly. Can he really do it? Nangong Natsuyu looked at the scene in front of her in a daze. Her jaw almost dropped to the ground. You can't be one of the gods recorded in the Bible, right? Xiao Shinsen stared at Dustless. His sharp eyes tried to see through Dustless's essence. This is just the outer Tao, reincarnation of heaven technique. It is one of my countless abilities. There is nothing to be surprised about. Facing the astonished gazes of the others, Dustless was abnormally calm. This world is terrible. Nangong Natsuyu suddenly sighed. The first true ancestor's Battle King domain was destroyed by Dustless. Akatsuki Koken was also devoured. In short, there were too many things that happened. Now, a monstrous character like Dustless had appeared. His strength completely surpassed the so-called true ancestor. She felt that the end of the world had arrived. Ding ding, Aurora, who was on the operating table, unconsciously let out a low groan. Shortly after, under the expectant gazes of the others, she opened her watery eyes that were as pure and flawless as gemstones. Am I really resurrected? Aurora, who opened her eyes, said in disbelief. She subconsciously pinched her skin. The pain made her realize that this was not a dream. She had her own body temperature. Of course. This kind of thing is as easy as pie for me. Dustless smiled and said, I have already fused the souls of Akatsuki Koken, the first true ancestor, and Vatler into your body. I estimate that you will only need a period of time to adapt and you will be able to obtain their full strength, thank you. Aurora bowed sincerely. It's a small matter. Dustless waved his hand, indicating that he didn't need to care about it. There was no need to thank him for this kind of thing. He only consumed the eye power of the Sharingan, and it didn't have any fatal effect on himself. In that case, Nagisa will be free from now on. Xiao Shinsen was relieved. He had already lost Koju and his future depended on his daughter. It would be best if Aurora could leave Nagisa's body. After chatting for a while, Dustless and the others left Xiao Shinsen's laboratory. Agurola also left with them. She didn't have a place to stay for the time being, so she just so happened to be staying in Koju's house. In any case, Koju was already dead. At Dustless's house, Jijua and Shelley had already finished school and returned home before Dustless. When they saw Dustless and Aurora coming back together, everyone frowned and secretly admired Dustless's luck with women. Perhaps Dustless didn't realize that a large number of beautiful women had already gathered at his house. Although many of them came inexplicably, it was undeniable that everyone was now living under the same roof. La Freya, that guy can't be possessed by the peach blossom god, right? It must be because he is too strong that a lot of people want to hug his thick thigh. Hanban Sayaka was speechless. Dustless's unique charm was all attributed to the source of his strength. Since ancient times, beautiful women loved heroes, this sentence was not wrong. Especially people like Dustless who had the strength to destroy the world, they were even more popular. For example, why was Koju so popular in the original work? The fundamental reason was his identity as a true ancestor. If he was an ordinary person, no one would care about him. Shoo, lower your voice. If you are found out, how can I, the first princess, put my face? La Freya glared at Hanban Sayaka reproachfully, hinting her not to talk too much. Dustless was sweating profusely after the big battle during the day, and his body reeked of sweat. As soon as he got home, he went to take a bath without even eating dinner. La Freya peeked at Dustless through the gap of the door. Really, you still know that you are a princess? Do you look like a princess now? Hanban Sayaka smiled bitterly in bewilderment. As a princess, it's fine if you peeked at someone taking a bath, but you actually took pictures in secret? Where is your moral integrity? But speaking of which, where is Azure Wing? I remember she was still here just now, but she didn't come home either. Hanban Sayaka looked around and suddenly found that Azure Wing was missing. She couldn't help but frown. I say. In the bathroom, Dustless frowned as he stared at the woman in front of him. She was tall and slender, and some parts of her body were very well distributed. The parts that should be protruding were very prominent, and the parts that should be perky were very conspicuous. Her golden hair was like the waves of the sea, casually hanging by her waist. Her clear eyes were very direct, and had an indescribable wild beauty. Miss Azure Wing, is it appropriate for you to watch me take a bath like this? Azure Wing put her hands on her hips and stared at Dustless, not caring about her naked body at all. She was very different from the usually shy Azure Wing, and her eyes were very open and natural. In my eyes, it's just skin. Of course, if you think it's unfair or you're at a disadvantage, I can also take off my clothes and we can see each other naked. This tone doesn't sound like Azure Wing, and the way she addressed me. Could it be that strange consciousness that entered Azure Wing's body before? Hearing this strange address, Dustless frowned. He carefully stared at Azure Wing and asked tentatively, "Are you that alchemist Nina Yadalak?" You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.